Welcome to Fiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendations for novels, comment below.
Please join my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/fictionaudiobook.
Chapter 435, Chapter 435 I should avoid him. What arrived faster than even the final step in Orochimaru's plan were the ships of the Big Mom Pirates and the Beast Pirates. It was quite a coincidence that these two ships sailed towards Dressrosa from different directions, only encountering each other when they were almost at the shore. "Miss Smoothie, over there, that looks like a Beast Pirate's ship." On the deck, Smoothie had been wearing sunglasses, enjoying the sunbath while tasting her newly developed juice. What a joke. Could there possibly be anyone in Doflamingo's little territory who could defeat the two sweet commanders? With this thought, neither Smoothie nor Cracker were very tense about this mission. Or perhaps they were already very familiar with it. Unexpectedly, before they even docked, the pirates under her suddenly exclaimed, "Beasts! Kaido!" Hearing this, Smoothie's expression changed immediately. She didn't even care that her juice had been knocked over, directly pulling off her sunglasses, sitting up, and looking into the distance. The bull-horned skull-black flag, indeed the Beast's pirate's symbol. For the two major pirate crews that frequently had friction, the other's pirate flag was all too familiar. However, upon seeing the size of the ship, Smoothie let out a sigh of relief. TCH. I thought it was Kaido himself coming. Judging by the ship model opposite, it wasn't Kaido, and not even one of the disasters, right? Then it's no problem. Pursing her lips, Smoothie ordered her subordinates. Tell Cracker to stop eating biscuits in the cabin and get ready to go ashore. Regarding her older brother Cracker, she wasn't particularly close, but she didn't dislike him either. Both were among the sweet commanders. Even within the family, there wasn't a clear hierarchical difference. Aside from Katakuri, none of them truly submitted to the others. "Miss Smoothie, that ship dash. Don't mind it." Smoothie put her sunglasses back on. "If they make any moves, sink it." On the other side, Who's Who made a similar decision. "It's one of the Big Mom Pirates' sweet commanders, Smoothie. Don't open fire first." Unlike their ship, the one opposite was Smoothie's personal flagship, recognizable at a glance. Although his words were about avoiding conflict, Who's Who was already calculating in his heart. This operation was basically planned by Who's Who, and he did this to seize greater power within the Beast Pirates. So he not only needed to do it right, but do it well. The appearance of Big Mom Pirate's sweet commander at this time point in Dressrosa made him suspect that they might have the same idea, wanting to bring this country into their sphere of influence. He wanted the Smile production line, and he wanted Dressrosa too. In the past, Joker could use Dressrosa's convenient geographical location to smuggle their weapons all over the world. There was no reason he, Who's Who, couldn't do this business. He believed that with the credit of taking over this territory, if he asked Kaido for the authority to manage this place, Kaido shouldn't be stingy about it. By then, he would be the weapons king of the new world. Only. Who's Who glanced inconspicuously at the captain's cabin on the second floor. There was a big trouble here too. Who's Who's orders weren't problematic, at least the other, Tobarapo's, members who came out with him didn't raise objections. The siblings Page 1 and Altai just silently watched the other ship without speaking. Sasaki and Black Maria remained on Onigashima to guard, not traveling together. Only X-Drake's eyes flickered somewhat complicatedly between the two large ships, then looked at the Dressrosa port not far away. He was a marine spy, responsible for infiltrating the Beast's pirates to provide intelligence to the Marines. After the war at Marineford not long ago, the Marines retracted their forces in the New World. While this unleashed the pirates to some extent, it also increased the difficulty for him to transmit information. In fact, ever since learning they were going to move against Dressrosa, he had been trying to pass the information to Marineford, but simply couldn't find an opportunity. Drake didn't want to see Dressrosa become another Wano country. After all, there was no other great hero here to vouch for them. Now, the appearance of the Big Mom Pirates was an opportunity. I needed to find a way to stir up conflict between the two sides. Drake thought to himself. Only a chaotic situation would make it convenient for him to make some small moves. Both pirate ships were flying their flags, which put the dock guides in a difficult position. It's the Beast's pirates and the Big Mom Pirates. Why would they come to Dressrosa together? Quick, go report to the Don Quixote family's executives. A smart person reacted promptly, instructing those around him. But what about them? There's only one berth left at this pier. Another person looked at the large ships approaching simultaneously, on the verge of tears. Both sides were forces they couldn't afford to offend. What to do? Dressrosa naturally couldn't have only one port, and this port had more than one pier. But it was just that unlucky. Both sides chose the nearest berthing spot, which could only accommodate one such large ship at the moment. You few, come with me to send semaphore signals, tell them to go to pier number 2. Ah. Tell which one to go to pier number 2. Both. Pier number 2 has more than one empty spot. The staff immediately sprang into action, boarding small boats and rowing towards the two large ships. Simultaneously, they began waving small flags, guiding them to dock at the more spacious pier number 2. Miss Smoothie. They're asking us to dock at the neighboring pier. Hearing this, Smoothie didn't even remove her sunglasses this time, directly ordering. Don't mind it. Dock here. She had also seen that this place seemed only able to accommodate one more large ship. But so what? Could it be that the two sweet commanders should give way to the guys opposite? On the other side, Who's Who and the others also received the same message from their subordinates. Go next door. It seemed they would have to take a detour, which would make them land a bit slower than the Big Mom pirates. But if a conflict broke out now, it would be somewhat unfavorable for his subsequent arrangements. Unlike Drake, who was hoping for conflict, Who's Who didn't want to clash with the other side so quickly just yet. However. Are you kidding me? You want us to avoid him? Steer the ship over. Hearing this bold and unrestrained female voice, Who's Who silently covered his eyes. There it is, the most troublesome person on this ship. Yamato had, at some point, come to the deck. Her kanabo, Takaru, was already slung over her shoulder. Young Master Yamato, don't forget the reason we came this time. Are you teaching me what to do? The cold kanabo directly pointed at Who's Who. A faint chill spread from Yamato's hand, the white frosty mist making Who's Who's hairs stand on end. Yamato's gaze towards him was very unfriendly. She already disliked Who's Who, the scheming villain, and was just itching for a chance to beat him up. If this guy dared say one more word, her thunderbagua would land on his face. No, you have the final say. Wisdom of the wise. Who's Who deeply understood the principle of enduring small humiliations for the sake of larger goals. So many years had passed, another moment wouldn't hurt. On this ship, Yamato's words were the command. Chapter 436, Chapter 436. Tell Mom I'm not a coward. Before the sailors on the ship could speak again, Smoothie's observation hockey had already detected the other ship's movement. What's going on? At some point, a man who was 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide, a square-shaped burly man appeared beside her. He was the other sweet commander, Cracker. More accurately, it was Cracker's biscuit armor shell. It's the beast's people. They don't seem friendly. Smoothie stood up, also drawing the exaggeratedly long two-handed sword from its sheath. The minions listening nearby thought to themselves, we are the ones who came. Of course, they didn't dare say this out loud. The beasts. Cracker murmured the name, also thinking about the matter with Dressrosa. Doflamingo had fallen into our hands. What were these people doing here now? Could it be they planned to protect Doflamingo's subordinates? Of course, the greater possibility might be seizing this ownerless country. If their goals didn't conflict, there wasn't really a need for the two sides to fight. Should we ask their purpose? As soon as Cracker asked this, Smoothie shook her head. I'm afraid we might have that thought, but they might not be so accommodating. Following Smoothie's finger to look opposite, the large ship flying the Beast Pirates flag had now begun adjusting its course, heading straight towards them. Smoothie didn't mention that she wasn't planning to give way, or rather, she considered the matter unimportant. They were the sweet commanders under a four-emperor. To have a dialogue, it should at least be someone at the level of the disasters, right? Could it be they should make way for a few small fries? If she really did that, regardless of whether the mission could be completed, Big Mom wouldn't let them off easily after finding out. For those at the level of a sea emperor, honor was very important, even more important than actual benefits at certain times. Some treated it as a reverse scale, others touching it meant a fight to the death. Coincidentally, both Big Mom and Kaido were such people. Of course, some also treated it as a skill. Miss Smoothie. Go forward. Since they had adopted a tough stance, they must tough it out to the end, otherwise, they would be looked down upon even more. The two ships thus ignored the semaphore signals from the people on the small boats, heading straight towards the same direction. The emotions in both sides' hearts were pretty much the same. Tell Mom I'm not a coward. So you mean I am one? Thus, don't drive angrily, and don't sail angrily. The two ships' original speed wasn't slow. In just a dazed moment, they were already quite close to each other. At this distance, both sides could clearly see the people on the other ship. Young Master Yamato, on the other side, not only is there Charlotte Smoothie, but also Cracker. Who's Who still hadn't given up, wanting to persuade Yamato. The recognizability of Cracker's biscuit armor shell was even higher than his original appearance, even the wanted posters depicted that square soldier figure. Yet Yamato acted as if she didn't hear, her eyes brimming with fighting spirit, staring fixedly at the two tallest figures in the opposite crowd. Excellent. The first time traveling far from home, I could encounter such a blood-boiling provocation. This is how it should be. This is right. When Yamato was acting chivalrously on Onigashima and in Wano country, the other side could basically recognize her identity. Sometimes, they would even surrender without a fight. And those ordinary pirates or thugs who didn't recognize her also basically couldn't withstand a single punch from her. Over there. Who's who, ex-Drake, seems like they're all Tobarapo members dash. But that white-haired guy. Being pirate crews of the four emperors, plus constant friction between them, both sides were already extremely familiar with the other's high-level combatants. Cracker glanced over and, as expected, didn't see the familiar faces of the disasters. If it was just the Tobarapo, then we really didn't need to give way. However, regarding Yamato, this unfamiliar face, Cracker paid a bit more attention. Whatever, one more, one less, makes no difference. Smoothie, don't be too careless dash. Cracker still wanted to say something when he saw Smoothie beside him already swinging her long sword, unleashing an exaggerated slash. Anyway, they'll all sink into the sea. Seeing the flying slash attack wide enough to cut the entire ship in half, the minions on the Beast's pirate's ship all showed somewhat frightened expressions. Even Tobarapo's members like Page 1 and Altai were as if facing a great enemy. Smoothie was not an opponent they could underestimate. Seeing the battle had already begun, Who's Who immediately changed his mindset. Avoiding battle was one thing, fearing battle was another. Bang. Bang. As a former CP9's member, Who's Who had naturally learned the Rokushiki. He even claimed to be a genius not inferior to Lucci. His body rapidly expanded in midair, two long fangs extending out. Zoan type, Nico Nico no Mi, model, Saber Tiger. Gag dash. Just as Who's Who prepared to use his sharp fangs to unleash the Gagan, an improved version of Shurgan, Yamato's figure shot out faster than him. Don't get in the way. She raised her kanabo, Takaru, behind her, gathering strength in midair. Ha 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 ha. Thunder dash. Bugwa. Boom. Sasuke, who was heading towards the Dressrosa's underground dock according to Viola's information, suddenly looked up towards the distant coast. In fact, he wasn't the only one who made such a move. The tremendous roar was still clear even from this far away. Confusion, surprise, unease, all sorts of emotions were among the crowd. Sasuke looked at the still somewhat distant journey ahead, then at the dock from where the sound came. Forget it, better focus on the serious business. Of course, Sasuke could ignore the commotion at the dock, but as the rulers, the Don Quixote family couldn't. Bad news. Treble-sama. At the East Port. There. A Don Quixote family soldier wearing a strange mask ran into the Spade Army's headquarters. He had received news from the members at the dock. Since Orochimaru temporarily took charge, the other Don Quixote family's members had changed the meeting location to the Spade Army's base where Treble resided. Regarding this, Orochimaru understood in his heart but showed no intention of interfering. Everyone couldn't be of one mind anyway, as long as it didn't hinder his plan, it was fine. I heard. Treble's face was gloomy. Just a few minutes before this soldier arrived, the roar that shook Dressrosa had already reached them. Judging from the direction of the sound, it could only be the East Port. Who is it? Daring to cause trouble in the Don Quixote family's territory. Treble felt he was really too aggrieved. In the 30 years since participating in establishing the Don Quixote family, this was the first time they felt so aggrieved. When Daffy wasn't around, why did everyone dare to step on us? This time, he would definitely let those people outside know that the Don Quixote family wasn't to be trifled with. It's the ships of the Beast's pirates and Big Mom pirates. Beasts. Big Mom. After hearing this, Treble, who had just stood up, sat back down. The several executives in the room, who had been indignant, also obediently sat back down. The Beast pirates and the Big Mom pirates, that's fine then. Not to mention now, even when Doflamingo was still here, people from these two forces coming to Dressrosa might not necessarily give him the respect. Let alone now. And, according to the intelligence Virgo sent back, wasn't Doflamingo captured by Big Mom's people? Now things were troublesome. Chapter 437, Chapter 437. Only after leaving home do you realize there's no rain outside. The dock. The battle erupted quickly and ended even faster. This should be considered a good thing for the Don Quixote family, at least Treble no longer had to worry about the people from the Big Mom pirates causing them trouble. No one ever expected that, even as pirates under the banner of the same four emperors, the difference in combat power between the two sides could be so vast. Ha, damn it, who, exactly are you? Cracker was breathing heavily. He was no longer in the biscuit soldier form from before. His true form was exposed to others after a long time, but Cracker didn't have the mind to care about that now. He was even finding it difficult to speak due to the pain. Beside Cracker, biscuit crumbs littered the ground. The other sweet commander, Smoothie, was currently lying on the deck amidst countless corpses of biscuit soldiers. The instigator of all this was the white-haired woman with the kanabo slung over her shoulder before them. How could this be? This guy is way too strong. Not one of the disasters, yet possessing power not inferior to, no, even surpassing them. In Cracker's understanding, even his strongest older brother shouldn't have been able to defeat the two of them so easily. His biscuit shields coated with armament hockey seemed to have truly become as brittle as biscuits before that white-haired woman's kanabo. A single casual swing could directly shatter them. If it was just that, it would be fine, as he could easily produce a whole bunch of those biscuit soldiers with a few claps, tiring her out. But this guy's attacks were way too fast. Before he could react, he had already taken a hit. And after being hit, besides feeling intense pain, Cracker was shocked to discover his devil fruit's ability had also been somewhat suppressed. The time needed to create a biscuit soldier extended from an instant to 2 or 3 seconds. 2 or 3 seconds, perhaps just the time for an ordinary person to yawn. But for the strong on the sea, such a big opening was enough to kill an enemy 10 times over. Cracker being able to stand now was already good. Smoothie was even worse off. The earlier slash attack was directly ignored by the white-haired woman, tanked with her body. It was hard to imagine what kind of opponents this person usually fought. Could it be Kaido? The white-haired woman opposite took a slash attack with her body without changing expression, then struck with her kanabo. Smoothie instinctively blocked. And her outcome was a broken sword and an unconscious person. Taken down in just one move. When did the beasts produce another monster like this? Hearing Cracker's question, Yamato was slightly taken aback at first, then an excited smile appeared on her face. She directly slung Takuru behind her back, stretched a hand forward, slightly bent her legs, and spoke her entrance lines as if having secretly rehearsed them 1,000 times. I am named Yamato. Known as the wandering white chivalrous hero, white hero. Currently traveling to nurture myself to vanquish all injustices in the world. Pleased to meet you. What in the world is this? Cracker felt somewhat lost. Aside from barely understanding the other party's name was Yamato, he didn't get anything else. Yamato, is it? What exactly are you talking about? Are you insulting me? Seeing the other party had absolutely no reaction to the rituals of chivalry, Yamato somewhat disappointedly withdrew her hand, standing straight again. As expected, encountering a heroic figure like that lord isn't so easy. Her expression seemed somewhat unsatisfied with this kind of entrance. What the hell are you talking about? The last thread in Cracker's mind snapped due to the pain and the completely incomprehensible situation. Bursting, pretzel. He charged forward like a frenzied beast, his muscles swelling even larger under the stimulation of pain. The famed sword, pretzel, in his hand, wrapped in hockey, began to spin wildly. I thought a small lesson would wake you up, but it seems I was too merciful. Facing Cracker's attack, Yamato wasn't very tense. Divine legs dash. Yamato's voice was calm and indifferent. Yet her figure disappeared from her original spot after her voice fell. White mist-like chill air drifted out from around her, stretched into a long strand due to her extreme speed, resembling a giant white snake. White snake drive. Terrifying conqueror's hockey wrapped around the kanabo, then transformed into a black-red shockwave striking towards Cracker. Hum. The enormous sound made everyone's ears ache. That monster-like low roar brought destructive power far beyond imagination. Conqueror's hockey infusion, a technique that even Katakuri and King hadn't mastered. Even across the entire sea, those who could master Conqueror's hockey infusion were absolutely few and far between, all leaders of major forces. Both the talent for Conqueror's hockey and extremely high combat aptitude were indispensable. By that reasoning, Katakuri should also qualify. However, he lacked a very important thing. Tempering from a strong opponent. In Tato land, Big Mom's word was everything. Katakuri was Big Mom's most loyal and excellent son. He was willing to become his mother's sword. But the problem was, he could never lay a hand on Big Mom. This perfect creation whose observation hockey was strong enough to see the future had never been beaten by Conqueror's hockey infusion. In this regard, Yamato had done very well. Because of a certain someone, she was more radical and reckless than her counterpart in the original timeline. With an attitude of, if you have the guts, kill me, during the years she was confined by Kaido, Yamato challenged him countless times, with a frequency comparable to eating and drinking. Now, with Yamato's physical defense, no one below the level of a 4 emperor even had the qualification to challenge her. Similarly, due to frequent exchanges, Yamato also comprehended the technique of Conqueror's hockey infusion earlier than her counterpart in the original timeline. Under the terrifying Conqueror's hockey shockwave, numerous tiny cracks quickly appeared on pretzel. Then, under its owner's incredulous gaze, this famed sword broke into 2 halves, following in the footsteps of Smoothie's sword. Cracker's outcome was even worse than his sister's. Smoothie was just knocked unconscious by a Kanabo blow and would probably wake up in a few hours. Judging by Cracker's current miserable state, he probably wouldn't wake up for 10 to 15 days. Maybe he might never wake up for life. Thud. The unconscious Cracker knelt powerlessly on the deck. Behind him, the second and third floors of Smoothie's flagship had been reduced to dust in the previous blast. Hiss, did I hit a bit too hard? Looking at Cracker's miserable state, even Yamato, the instigator, felt somewhat guilty. It was also her fault. She's used to fighting her old geezer normally, so she got a bit carried away when serious. She really hadn't thought that people outside Onigashima were so fragile. She originally thought there were storms outside home. Only after leaving home did she realize there was no rain outside at all. Asked by Yamato, page 1, who's who, and the others instinctively nodded, then quickly shook their heads. Always seeing this young master Yamato get beaten by Kaido, they had almost forgotten that Yamato was someone who could withstand a thunderbagua without changing expression. Who's little schemes immediately retracted. And ex-Drake, this Tobarapo who had only recently joined the Beast's pirates, was now wiping cold sweat. That pressure just now. No good, I had to get the information out as soon as possible. Otherwise, with the power of Yamato, Kaido's daughter, no one in this country could possibly stop her. But Drake was overthinking it. It was just that he wasn't familiar enough with Yamato's personality. If he had stayed with the Beast's pirates long enough, he would understand that with Yamato in this country, the civilians would be the safest. Chapter 438, Chapter 438. The bigger the place, the more eccentric people. The smaller the place, the more eccentric they are. Good fortune never comes in pairs, and misfortune never comes alone. While Treble was still headache over the conflict that was about to erupt, had already ended, at the dock, a minion who couldn't read the atmosphere brought him another piece of bad news. Treble-sama, someone is causing trouble at the Colosseum. What did you say? That kind of small matter. Treble was a bit impatient, wanting to tell this guy to get lost. Couldn't he see they were discussing matters concerning the life and death of the Don Quixote family right now? If there was a troublemaker at the Colosseum, then just bring people to suppress them. It wasn't the first time. After all, they were gladiators, it was normal to have a hot temper. Plus, the Corrida Colosseum was also open to non-Dressrosa people. With all sorts of characters on the sea, one or two wanting to cause trouble was completely normal. That person is the leader of the Happo Navy, Shinjo. He has already defeated many of our comrades. We can't even get close. The minion looked as if he was about to cry. Facing Shinjo, whose strength hadn't declined and who possessed all three types of haki, they were no match even with rifles and cannons. Now the other side was on a rampage in the Corrida Colosseum, they were utterly helpless. This was also part of Shinjo and the others' plan. Shinjo's size and way of moving determined he couldn't do infiltration work. In that case, it was better for him to attract the enemy's attention, buying time for the others. Shinjo. Why would that guy come here? Perhaps because they had offended too many people, Treble simply couldn't connect Shinjo's appearance with the arms business near the Kano country. After all, their arms were sold all over the sea. Damn it, if the young master were here, how could these people act so arrogantly like now? Pika, take Gladius and Lao Ji to the Corrida Colosseum. The rest, come with me to the dock. Although they were all executives, Treble, as the elder and strategist, actually held higher authority within the Don Quixote family than the others. With Doflamingo captured and Diamante controlled, he was the only remaining leader in the family. Okay. Pika responded in his high-pitched voice. Don't be careless, Pika. The recent run of bad luck made Treble's mindset more cautious. Don't worry, it's just an old, washed-up pirate. Hearing Pika's words, Treble couldn't say more. Buffalo, where's Baby 5? At this point, Treble noticed one person missing from the group, frowning as he asked. I don't know. Suddenly asked this, the spinning top-looking buffalo belatedly reacted. That woman. Forget it, let's not worry about her for now. Treble cursed in his heart, didn't waste more time on Baby 5's whereabouts. The urgent matter was to handle the impending crisis. Treble had already made a decision in his heart. With their current strength, they were insufficient to act as mediators to resolve conflicts. So, what he needed to do wasn't to downplay the matter, but rather go over and stir things up. He planned to bring the family's elite members to help one side eliminate the other. This way, they could not only show determination to one side but also shift the conflict over Dressrosa to between the two major forces. The cost was that until Doflamingo returned, they would have to temporarily become vassals of one side. This was also a move of necessity. As for helping whom? The young master was captured by the Big Mom side. They and the Don Quixote family were already naturally in opposition. So what other choice was there? Definitely help the Beast's pirates side. Setting aside whether Treble's move to show loyalty would be accepted by Yamato, this was actually the first time Sasuke felt puzzled by his own genjutsu. Going down from there is the Donkiksote family's underground port, and here is the Smile production workshop. Baby 5, wearing a maid outfit, walked in front of Sasuke, her attitude and expression as natural as introducing products to a guest. Genjutsu could indeed control others to a certain extent, but he remembered he didn't seem to have time to use genjutsu on her. Really, a strange person. 10 minutes ago, Sasuke, heading towards the underground port according to Viola's clues, encountered Baby 5 wandering nearby. The directions Viola gave were still too rough, only a vague location. Upon arrival, Sasuke still needed to search around a bit. Unfortunately, his observation hoki's coverage was limited. Otherwise, if it were like Naruto's, he probably would have directly blitzed the underground dock as soon as he arrived on the island. Baby 5 didn't appear in Viola's intelligence, so theoretically, even if Sasuke saw this woman smoking with guns and cannons on her back, he wouldn't consider her an enemy. However, perhaps considering Baby 5's personality, Doflamingo always arranged subordinates to follow her nearby, preventing someone from tricking Baby 5 into marriage with just any random sentence. Those subordinates' uniform attire was the best indicator. Thus, in the genjutsu, those minions were the first to fall unconscious. Then Sasuke wanted to question Baby 5. Although I know it's unlikely, I still hope you can take me to the place where Doflamingo secretly stores arms. As he said this, the Sharingan had already turned towards Baby 5, about to use genjutsu on her in the next moment. However, Baby 5's response came faster than the genjutsu. Nah, needed. You need me. The previously impatient gun cannon maid immediately covered her mouth with both hands, looking incredulous. Then she lowered her head, just avoiding Sasuke's line of sight. Okay, I'm happy to be of service. Question mark. This place was originally guarded by Senor Pink, but he was turned into stone in the last battle, so now Dellinger is in charge here. It must be said, Baby 5's service attitude was quite thorough. Not only did she actively lead the way for Sasuke, an enemy, she even introduced the opponents he might encounter next. Is that so? Then, thank you. Even with Sasuke's considerable experience, this was still the first time he encountered someone like Baby 5. Different from the ninja world, this sea was still too vast, there were all sorts of people. As the saying goes, the bigger the place, the more eccentric people, the smaller the place, the more eccentric they are. This was reflected in both the crazies of the ninja world and the oddballs of the pirates. Is this a proposal? Yes. I'd love to. Unsurprisingly, Baby 5 immediately misinterpreted Sasuke's words as a marriage proposal and agreed at lightning speed. Sasuke was speechless, lines of sweat appearing on his forehead. He really hadn't encountered this situation before. What was this? A honey trap. But this wasn't the result I wanted. Somewhat at a loss, Sasuke's gaze glanced to the side and happened to see a person dressed in Donkiksote family's minion attire placing a half-person tall wooden barrel on top of a building. In fact, on the way here, Sasuke had noticed many people similar to him. Those people placed barrels of various sizes in different locations. Hospitals, restaurants, inns, markets, basically places with high human traffic. What are they doing? Not understanding, just ask. Sasuke directly pointed across. Ah dear, what did you say? Oh, them. It's still that guy named Orochimaru, having us cooperate to do some experimental data collection or something. Baby 5, who had already changed her address, having completed the wedding with Sasuke in her mind, looked over with flushed cheeks. Orochimaru. Chapter 439, Chapter 439 Join the Glorious Evolution. Orochimaru. This was the second time Sasuke had heard about Orochimaru on this island. From Naruto, he also learned that Orochimaru had previously created a copy, no, a clone would be more accurate, to try to spy on another world. Unexpectedly, Naruto directly wiped the clone's memories and threw it to that big pirate called Big Mom to be her fiancée. Recalling the brief glimpse at the Summit War, Sasuke shuddered involuntarily. Big Mom was a very powerful female pirate. But Naruto, who threw the enemy to this female pirate, was, in a sense, even more terrifying. But looking at the current situation, it seemed he had already escaped from Big Mom's grasp. Should he say, as expected of one of the legendary Sannin? Even after losing his memories, he was still not simple. Experiment. Chewing on this word, Sasuke looked at those barrels, his eyes slightly reddening as the ability of Wudo activated once more. The next moment, in Sasuke's vision, a wisp of black smoke representing calamity drifted up from the barrels, stretching into the sky. 1, 2, the entire sky above Dressrosa was now shrouded in countless black smoke trails. Great. Orochimaru-sama, the arrangements you requested have been completed. A low-ranking member of the Donkiksote family approached Orochimaru's room tremblingly, reporting the progress of their work. Originally, they had intended to report to Treble first, but when they went to the Spade Corps station, they learned that Treble had already headed to the eastern port where the disturbance was happening. So they came to Orochimaru instead. For these small fries, who they served wasn't really a big issue. They had sought refuge under the Don Quixote family, this group of villains, precisely because their own strength was insufficient to stand on their own. Currently, with Doflamingo not showing himself and high-ranking members like Treble seemingly controlled by this newcomer, they could clearly see who was active and who was passive. It's just that the pressure Orochimaru gave off was too strong. Just being in the same room with him made these low-ranking members feel an involuntary chill crawling up their spines. If not absolutely necessary, they really didn't dare to approach Orochimaru actively. You've worked hard, everyone. Surprisingly, Orochimaru's attitude towards them was very gentle, even friendly. Towards these low-ranking members, considered as expendable as weeds, Orochimaru could still maintain elegance and courtesy. In this aspect, he was somewhat better than the Don Quixote family's executives. If only he wasn't so terrifying looking. The messenger, by the light coming in from the window, could barely make out half of Orochimaru's face under the hood. It was a somewhat sickly pale face, with scales on it. When he opened his mouth to speak, his already forked tongue would occasionally flick past the corner of his mouth. Eek. Still too scary. Orochimaru-sama, then we'll take our leave now. This low-ranking member really didn't dare to stay here any longer, so he gathered his courage and spoke. Fortunately, the imagined scolding or even beating didn't occur. Orochimaru even responded in a voice that could be described as gentle. Very well. Go and rest properly. After that person ran out as if granted amnesty, only Orochimaru remained alone in the room. He gently removed the hooded cloak. Underneath the clothes was a one-piece suit. That was specially made to prevent being ambushed by Sugar's ability. Sugar's Hobi no Mi required direct physical touch, nothing could be in between. Even though Sugar's body was only the size of a little girl, she had developed extremely fast hand speed over these more than 10 years. Ordinary people, no, even trained warriors could easily be caught off guard by Sugar's speed. Just one touch, and everything would be over. Walking to the floor-to-ceiling window, Orochimaru seemed somewhat unable to bear the stuffiness of the one-piece suit and actually reached out to tear it open. After the suit was torn open, what was revealed was a half-human, half-snake monster. At this moment, Orochimaru seemed to have mutated even more thoroughly than when he first arrived here. His eyes, his head were all showing signs of changing toward a snake. Fortunately, Orochimaru's limbs hadn't degenerated like a snake's, in fact, they seemed even more powerful than before. Compared to when he first awakened on Whole Cake Island, after living in this world for a while and eating many foods rich in vitality, Orochimaru seemed to have just entered a growth stage. He was changing, no, evolving. But it wasn't enough yet. Faced with those seafaring powerhouses who could casually destroy the world, he was still far from being a match. He needed more directions for evolution, more results from trial and error. He needed enough experimental samples. Join the glorious evolution, become my strength. His pale fingers pressed against the glass window, directly covering a large area below. Just as he said this, changes also appeared on those barrels that had been transported to various places across Dressrosa. Hiss. A device on the top of a barrel was triggered, opening automatically. Immediately, a light pink smoke drifted out from it, spreading at an extremely fast rate. Huh. What's this? It smells quite nice. Is it some kind of event? Soon, people on the streets noticed the pink smoke. Caesar had to admit, Orochimaru was a rather meticulous guy. He had corrected a conceptual error for him. Orochimaru actually had him make the gas mixed with the experimental drug into a rose scent. Pink, rose fragrance, these things looked much more harmless than the killing gases he usually used. And that was its most fatal aspect. Spreading this kind of smoke in a passionate country like Dressrosa not only wouldn't make people sense danger, but many might even mistake it for a gimmick created by shops to attract customers. By the time those people sensed something wrong with their bodies, it would be too late to run out of the gas-covered area. He had even given this gas a gentle name with a touch of dark humor. Pink memories. Inside the Koreha Coliseum, Shinjo was still swaggering on the arena. He didn't follow the Coliseum's rules at all. Even after knocking everyone in the arena down, he didn't leave the ring. Then, no matter who came up, they would get a headbutt from Shinjo. Those low-ranking members under Doflamingo's command still wanted to overwhelm him with numbers, but Shinjo simply used Conqueror's Haki to clear the field. If not for wanting to conserve some stamina and keep some people conscious to attract enough attention, Shinjo alone could have swept through the entire Koreha Coliseum by now. There was no helping it, after all, the current Doflamingo wasn't generous enough to offer a Logia devil fruit as the winner's prize. Therefore, those attracted to the Coliseum were mostly just wandering criminal pirates and some local gladiators. Rebecca, looking at Shinjo still slowly swinging left and right in the center of the arena, put on her helmet, picked up her long sword, and prepared to go up. But her move was stopped by a one-legged soldier toy. Soldier-san. Rebecca was somewhat puzzled. She had defeated opponents larger than herself before, and Soldier-san never stopped her then. However, Kairos, the former gladiator champion turned into a toy soldier, wasn't as narrow-sighted as his daughter. Shinjo was not on the same level as previous opponents. Against such a strong opponent, not only Rebecca, but even he in his prime wouldn't dare claim victory. And the most crucial thing was, it ends here, Shinjo. Along with Gladius's low voice, Pika and his group emerged from a passageway on the other side. Pika didn't speak, while Gladius temporarily spoke for him to issue the challenge. "Oh. Finally arrived, have you?" Doflamingo's loyal dogs. Upon seeing Pika and the others, strong hatred immediately surged on Rebecca's face. With the Don Quixote family in front, Shinjo was completely pushed to the back of her mind. It was these people. It was them. They killed Mother. All these years, Rebecca had constantly wanted revenge for her family. Whenever she couldn't persevere through training, what supported her, besides Soldier-san's encouragement, was her hatred for the Don Quixote family. "Rebecca. I know what you want to do, but right now, you dash." Kairos understood his daughter's feelings intimately. In fact, as someone turned into a toy and forgotten, the fire of hatred in his heart burned even stronger than his daughter's. He wanted to tell Rebecca not to do anything foolish, but halfway through his words, he heard a thud, the sound of someone falling. "Rebecca. What's wrong?" "Rebecca." Kairos hopped anxiously on his single leg to his daughter's side. Unbeknownst to him, pink mist had already begun to fill the preparation area of the Colosseum. And Kairos, he was a toy now. He couldn't smell it at all. Chapter 440, The Snake People Crisis, Part 1. Rebecca. How dash? Kairos's shout was cut off by a sudden attack. As a gladiator, even though he had been turned into a toy by Sugar, Kairos's combat skills were still proficient. At the critical moment, he used the toy rifle he carried to block in front of him, deflecting the force and narrowly avoiding being shattered in one blow. Of course, that toy rifle was definitely broken in two. Cracks even appeared on his toy arm. Such tremendous strength. Kairos was horrified, but there seemed to be no time for further thought now. Right in front of him, Rebecca, who had just inhaled the pink mist, had already stood up again. Her skin had become somewhat pale, and fine scales had appeared on the joints of her skin that the gladiator attire couldn't cover. They didn't look like fish scales, instead, they were more like snake scales. 90% of the people in the preparation area showed the same changes as Rebecca. They had also grown white scales, their bodies began to lengthen from their original forms, and their skulls became increasingly flat, like snake heads. There were one or two guys who didn't undergo these changes, but their fate seemed even worse. A pirate, seeing the changes in the people around him, immediately sensed something was wrong and instinctively used his Devil Fruits ability, transforming into a giant standing bear. A Kuma Kuma no Mi's user. Sure enough, the next moment, those half-human, half-snake monsters pounced. Their lower jaws opened at an exaggerated angle, even tearing slightly at the corners of their mouths. In their mouths, 4 sharp fangs had grown. Ayawa. The pirate turned into a giant bear felt intense pain on his body, followed by numbness where he was bitten. He slammed the creature biting him away with a mighty paw. The snake person shot into the wall like a cannonball, its head bent at a 90-degree angle, which would have meant instant death under normal circumstances. But now, it acted as if nothing was wrong, just twisted a few times and stood back up. At the same time, the blood in its mouth seemed to stimulate some primal predatory instinct, causing its eyes, now with vertical pupils, to erupt with a terrifying desire to hunt. However, before this snake person could do anything, other snake people around him attacked him first. Whether it was the snake person stained with blood or the giant bear with bite wounds, they all seemed to become targets for the other snake people. They even began to fight and kill each other. The vitality of these snake people was extremely tenacious. Kairos watched as a snake person had half its body torn off by a companion but still clung to life, even attempting to attack the surrounding snake people. Too terrifying. What kind of hellish scene was this? The preparation room, originally just a bit smelly from sweat, was now filled with the stench of blood. Of course, what worried Kairos more now was his daughter, Rebecca. But Rebecca didn't seem to be attacking others madly like the other snake people. In fact, apart from slapping Kairos away at the very beginning, Rebecca hadn't taken any action since. She stood there quietly like a statue, but expressions of pain kept flashing across her face. Hurry, go. Tiny sounds came from her mouth, word by word. It was only because Kairos was close enough that he could hear them clearly. Rebecca. She's still conscious. Kairos could sense that his daughter seemed to be struggling against that bestial nature. Don't give up. Rebecca. I won't abandon you. Despite the risk of being destroyed, Kairos still chose not to leave. What was happening in the preparation area was now playing out all over Dressrosa. Countless people turned into half-human, half-snake monsters, beginning to attack any moving creature around them following some instinct. But some people, like Rebecca, even though they had mutated, were still trying to retain their reason. Of course, the most confused were the devil fruit users. The pink mist seemed completely ineffective on them. Therefore, from their perspective, the scene around them became utterly terrifying. On the arena platform, Gluttonous, who had been blocking the way and about to say something, suddenly fell silent. In front of their group, Chinjo, who had looked disdainful just moments before, suddenly had his expression change drastically. He clutched his chest and began to roar. Arg. A terrifying conqueror's haki was also released in the process, spreading continuously around him. What an overwhelming aura. What's wrong with him? Gluttonous looked incredulous. From this old man, he actually felt conqueror's haki not inferior to Doflamingo's. Gluttonous, get away. Suddenly, Pika's sharp voice rang out. Before Gluttonous could react, he felt a sharp pain in his back. Thud. The one who attacked was actually Lao Ji, who had come with them. The originally shaky old man had now transformed into a muscular, inverted triangle shape, and his body was constantly lengthening due to the pink memories. Pika immediately recognized that Lao Ji's current appearance was practically another Orochimaru. It's the mist. This is all Orochimaru's plot. Before Pika could finish his words, Lao Ji launched an attack on him. Roar. Damn it. Stone Pin. Facing a member of the same family, especially a senior executive like Lao Ji, Pika didn't want to go for the kill. He instantly merged into the ground, and then two huge stone cylinders extended from the wall beside Lao Ji. The tops of the cylinders had numerous elongated stone stakes. Originally, they should have been sharp stone spikes. These stone stakes trapped Lao Ji like a cage. No matter how much he destroyed them, the stones would grow back at an even faster rate. The good news was that the current Lao Ji didn't seem to be able to use armament haki, and could only rely on his enhanced body for destruction. This level of destruction speed was still barely acceptable for Pika. But the bad news was that there was more than just Lao Ji to deal with here. Treble had considered whether the battle between Big Mom pirates and the Beasts pirates would be intense, and whether the two sides might even destroy the port along with it. After all, members of two Emperor's crews wouldn't care about a little destruction in Dressrosa. It's just that the scene on site was far more tidy than he had imagined. When Treble and his group arrived at the port, they only saw a ship from the Beasts pirates. What's going on here? Treble directly pulled over a person in charge to ask. That person tremblingly explained the earlier situation, how the two sides had clashed, how an expert like a god descending from heaven appeared on the Beasts pirates' side, single-handedly overwhelming the Big Mom pirates. Could it be Kaido himself? That was Treble's first thought. But soon, his question was answered. A tall woman he had never seen before strode over at the forefront. Behind her, several pirates Treble recognized were following obediently. Among them was Fuse, who had previous dealings with the Don Quixote family. Even her status surpasses that of the Tobarapo. Could this woman be the next disaster? This was before Treble knew that two sweet commanders had come from the Big Mom pirates. Otherwise, that assessment could have been even higher. Hey, are you the person in charge here right now? Chapter 441, Chapter 441 The Snake People Crisis, Part 2. Hey, are you the person in charge here right now? Yamato took the initiative right from the start. She directly usurped Who's right to speak. It also completely dashed the others' thoughts of using this opportunity to earn some credit with Kaido. Regarding this point, Who had already mentally prepared himself somewhat when he learned Yamato would be coming along. But it didn't matter, acquiring the artificial devil fruit production line wasn't something that could be done overnight. This young master, Yamato, definitely wouldn't have the patience to handle things personally, so when the time came, Who's Who, would still be the one calling the shots. The only thing he needed to pay attention to were these guys beside him. Thinking this, Who's gaze swept over X-Drake, Altai, and Page 1 beside him. Especially toward X-Drake. That guy posed the biggest threat to him. The Altai siblings didn't show much desire for power back on Onigashima. In contrast, X-Drake, who had only recently joined the Beasts pirates, often sought to gain Kaido's attention. As a result, X-Drake, who had only joined a few months ago, actually attained the same, Tobarapo, position as him, Who's Who. Good grief. I've been with the Beasts for over 10 years. What right does this newcomer have to compete with me? And, whether it was his illusion or not, Who's Who always felt X-Drake was hiding some secret. There was an aura about him that Who's Who found distasteful. Who's Who didn't voice this suspicion openly, just quietly kept an eye on the other in the shadows, waiting for X-Drake to slip up so he could decisively eliminate him. Setting aside what Who's Who was plotting, Treble was caught off guard by the imposing aura of the person before him. Yamato wasn't particularly fond of anyone from the Don Quixote family. She knew they had been helping the beast's pirates resell weapons and sea stone, and she knew they used artificial devil fruits as bargaining chips to cooperate with the beast's pirates. But what did that have to do with her? Did they really expect her to inherit Onigashima and Wano country? If that day ever came, Yamato's first order would be to disband the beast's pirates. At least, that's what Yamato thought for now. She didn't believe her old man would hand over the position of the next beast's pirates commander to her. Even giving it to King would be better than giving it to her. What Yamato yearned for was the romantic act of roaming the world, like Naruto, not standing at the peak of power, enjoying the flattery of others. Ordering you to deliver something, and it's either windy or rainy. Does the Don Quixote family want to start a war with the beast's pirates? Yamato pointed her kanabo, Takaru, directly at Treble's head, looking very much like she'd start fighting at the slightest disagreement. Even without witnessing Yamato's strength firsthand, considering her likely status above the Tobarapo, Treble could only seethe inwardly, not daring to speak out. The people around him, Makvice, Giala, and Buffalo, all showed expressions as if they'd swallowed a dead fly. In the past, with Doflamingo presiding, even envoys sent by Kaido wouldn't be this arrogant. Now the other side actually dared to speak to them like this. They had to endure it. There was no choice, circumstances were stronger than people. Even if they performed exceptionally well and really managed to defeat this group in front of them, so what? The subsequent retaliation from the beast's pirates was something they couldn't withstand. Unless they completely abandoned Dressrosa, they'd just be waiting for the disasters to uproot them. Our sincerest apologies. Too many incidents have occurred in Dressrosa recently, coupled with the events at Marineford Dash. Treble prepared himself mentally, then very earnestly began explaining to Yamato. He didn't dare use his usual slimy way of speaking now. He mentioned the Marineford incident, but the real reason affecting fruit production was the series of actions taken by Orochimaru and Caesar. Now a large number of the Tontata tribe from the fruit production workshop had been transported to Punk Hazard to produce something they needed. The remaining people had severely insufficient output, that was the key reason for the delay in goods. However, Treble's concession didn't earn him any understanding at all. Yamato seemed deliberately looking for trouble, interrupting again in an aggressive tone. That's your problem. We, the beast's pirates, only care about results. Including the delayed goods, I want double the fruits today. It seemed Yamato wasn't acting unreasonably like this for the first time. A certain great hero once told Yamato that sometimes, to achieve a right goal, one had to deliberately adopt a particular attitude. Even if it didn't come from the heart or wasn't understood by others, it didn't matter. A hero only needs to uphold their own righteousness. Yamato's goal was to mess up this matter. It would be even better if she could completely sever cooperation with the Don Quixote family. Listening to Yamato's arrogant declaration, Who felt a surge of anger he couldn't vent or swallow. Now you're saying, we, the beasts one after another. Where was this strong sense of identification usually? But he still didn't want Yamato to push the other side too hard. After all, if things reached a deadlock, it would be troublesome. Yamato wouldn't face any punishment, but he, the proposer of the plan, definitely wouldn't get off easy. Just as Who was preparing to brave Yamato's displeasure and step forward to say something, the gas barrels Orochimaru had placed near the dock exploded. The next moment, a scene identical to the one inside the Corrida Coliseum played out. Those who weren't devil fruit users transformed into snake people, beginning to indiscriminately attack any living being around them. It's hard to say whether it was good luck or something else. The majority of the Beast's Pirates members Yamato brought this time had eaten artificial devil fruits. Although artificial devil fruits had many side effects and their effects weren't as good as genuine devil fruits, they could immunize against the transformation caused by that gas. Seeing this sudden situation, Yamato was stunned for a moment, then frowned. Thud. She swung her kanabo, sending dozens of snake people flying. It looks like your Don Quixote family truly intends to make an enemy of us. At this point, even Who wasn't planning to step forward anymore. Fighting with the Big Mom pirates could still be considered a minor clash between emperors. But you, the Don Quixote family, dare to ambush us. This is a blatant provocation. After Treble reacted, he, like Pika, immediately thought of Orochimaru. But Yamato had no intention of listening to his explanation at all. The kanabo came crashing down with terrifying force. It's war. Thunderbagwa. In front of the artificial devil fruits production workshop, a group of snake people lay on the ground, unconscious. Among them, a particularly massive figure was still trying to struggle. He was a combatant of the Don Quixote family. Dellinger, a fighting fishman. When not in combat mode, he looked like an ordinary boy with an extra pair of horns. But Dellinger's appearance had drastically changed now. His original height of around 1.5 meters had now increased more than fivefold, completely turning him into a half-snake, half-fishman monster. Sharp tail fins like blades extended from his back, His limbs had become thick and large, and his high-heeled shoes had unsurprisingly burst. His physical attributes, already far surpassing ordinary humans, received another boost under the Snake People gas transformation. But after Sasuke followed up with a Sharingan Genjutsu, Dellinger's massive body still collapsed. Around them, countless Snake People had fallen under the Genjutsu. What is going on? Baby 5 covered her mouth, looking at the surrounding monsters in disbelief. But Sasuke, from the serpentine faces of these people, thought of that sinister figure. Orochimaru. Even in another world, even after losing his memories, this guy still can't keep quiet. Killing intent quietly rose in Sasuke's heart. He suddenly remembered that Orochimaru had also played a small part in the Uchiha clan's massacre incident back then. Indeed, such a guy is best off dead. Chapter 442, Chapter 442 The Snake People Crisis, Part 3. The highest point of Dressrosa, within an airtight room. Orochimaru sat before a large array of monitors, his snake-like pupils rapidly scanning across the various screens while he continuously jotted down notes with a pen. Confirmed, the drug is ineffective against devil fruit users. Number 1 variant exhibits agility specialization, can maintain limited rationality. On the screen was Rebecca, her figure having become more slender and her speed incredibly fast. At this moment, Rebecca's eyes were cloudy, but she still stood protectively in front of Kairos, cutting any snake person daring to approach into pieces. The two-handed sword now seemed appropriately sized in her hands. The snake people transformed from other gladiators couldn't even react before the white blur that was Rebecca. In the blink of an eye, they were decapitated. However, even with their heads severed, these snake people still retained vitality. Their headless bodies even moved toward the heads on the ground, mouths still opening and closing. Number 2 variant seems to have acquired some ability to control other subjects, did not exhibit maintained rational state. This time, the scene on the screen wasn't a battlefield, but inside a hospital. A snake person, thin, short, and not much different from before the mutation, was currently coiled before a stone statue. The statue looked quite comical, it was actually a middle-aged man wearing baby clothes. He was Senor Pink, turned to stone by Hancock during his earlier trip to Whole Cake Island with Doflamingo and had never reverted. And Doflamingo, being thoughtful, had placed Senor Pink's statue in the same room as his wife, Russian, who had become comatose. The woman, who had become comatose due to injuries from a landslide, showed unexpected changes after inhaling the gas. She seemed to still remember her husband, instinctively positioning herself in front of the stone statue. And the sound waves emitted by Russian could cause other snake people around her to instinctively protect her. Number 3 variant. Chinjo. Truly formidable power. Watching the giant snake person on the screen casually knock away Don Quixote family's executives with single blows, Orochimaru was deeply shaken by its strength. No. 3 variants originally held Conqueror's Haki seems to influence the drug, allowing it to maintain relatively high rationality. Ha! Damn it. What the hell did you do to me? On the arena platform, Chinjo's physique had become twice as large as before. He also showed signs of snake person transformation, but it was much better than the other snake people. At least his skeletal structure didn't seem to have changed much, only scales appeared on his skin surface, and his teeth became sharper. Most importantly, he could still maintain his reason. Boom. Gladius's arm expanded, intending to use his move, Punk Rock Fest, to attack Chinjo. Unexpectedly, the snake person Chinjo directly ignored the explosion and charged through. A large hand with sharp nails pierced through the explosion smoke and grabbed Gladius. Following a series of teeth-grinding bone-crunching sounds and screams, Gladius was almost instantly defeated by Chinjo. Originally, Gladius was no match for Chinjo, whose strength hadn't declined. Coupled with the snake person transformation further enhancing Chinjo's physical attributes, Gladius's defeat was a foregone conclusion. Gladius. Bastard. Pika was still busy restraining Lao Ji. Turning his head, he saw his companion drenched in blood, condition unknown, and immediately roared in anger. Octopus Stone. He quickly merged into the ground, then transformed into 8 giant stone tentacles attacking Chinjo. Get lost. At this moment, Chinjo's temper was extremely irritable. Although the gas didn't make him completely lose his reason, it did affect his mind to some extent. Right now, it felt like countless voices in Chinjo's head were urging him to bite, devour, hunt. That instinctual craving for evolution was struggling against his own rationality. Armament Haki covered his sharp claws. Then, with a flash of black light, the stone tentacles capable of destroying city walls were smashed into flying fragments by this single strike. Even Pika's true body, hidden within, was injured by Chinjo. Even with armament Haki applied, several deep gashes appeared on Pika's proud, resilient body. Haki, a power related to the mind, seems to have a special effect. Orochimaru was genuinely observing with an experimental mindset. He drew a preliminary conclusion from his records. The stronger the mental power, or the stronger the willpower of the subject, the more likely they were to maintain rationality and receive further enhancement. Individuals like Rebecca and Russian, who weren't particularly strong before mutation, and even weaker than ordinary people, could also maintain their reason under the gas's influence. This is a truly interesting result. Orochimaru unconsciously stuck out his tongue to lick his lips, then began observing a certain subject he had been eyeing from the start. Let me see, the resistance of non-humans to this drug, When Orochimaru looked at the visual Den Mushi responsible for monitoring Dellinger, he happened to see Sasuke unleashing his power, making all the snake people collapse to the ground with just a glance. A special devil fruit user? No. Orochimaru looked at the two figures standing in the frame. One he recognized, the Donkixode family's combatant, Baby 5, the Buki no Mi's user, also a promising individual. The upper limit of weapons depends on cognition and intelligence. This fruit could fully unleash even more terrifying effects. More crucially, this woman was really easy to control. Orochimaru originally planned to take her along after the experiment was over. These eyes. For some reason, when Orochimaru saw those crimson eyes in the frame, he inexplicably felt a sense of craving. Like an instinct, a greed rooted deep in his bones. But he had no memory of these eyes. This wasn't normal. The only result Orochimaru could think of was that the other party had some connection with his pre-amnesia self. Yes. He had discovered his own abnormality very early on. Pudding's brutal deletion of his memories was far too illogical. That shoddily fabricated recollection was something Orochimaru could never accept. It's just that his current strength was still too weak, so he wasn't qualified to reclaim his memories from Big Mom. You've spotted me. It doesn't matter, let me see what's so special about you. On the display screen, those crimson eyes suddenly made eye contact with the Den Mushi's broadcast feed. Sasuke's temper had indeed improved quite a bit compared to before. In the past, for those who dared to attack him, he basically wouldn't hold back, unlike now where he merely knocked them unconscious. After dealing with all those who had generated intense killing intent toward him, Sasuke then noticed a gaze persistently watching him from a concealed crack in the wall. Reaching out to retrieve it, he recognized the snail-like little thing. He had seen it in Impel Down. Surveillance visual Den Mushi. Someone is watching here dash. Orochimaru. Thinking this, Sasuke's Sharingan gently rotated, and the feed on Orochimaru's side completely vanished. As mentioned before, Den Mushi can also be controlled by Genjutsu. The disappearance of the surveillance feed didn't seem to affect Orochimaru's observation at all. He just fiddled with the console a bit, and the broadcast from another Den Mushi's perspective was projected onto the display screen. Again. Sasuke could sense it as well. But before he could continue finding the Den Mushi, a startled exclamation came from Baby 5 behind him. Darling, watch out. Chapter 443, The Snake People Crisis, Part 4. Darling, watch out. Baby 5 was still basking in the happiness of being protected by Sasuke when she saw Dellinger, who had been lying on the ground earlier, silently get back up and launch an attack on Sasuke, who was observing the direction of the Den Mushi. She didn't have time to react further. After shouting the warning, she swiftly moved to block Dellinger's path. Baby 5's hands transformed into flintlock pistols, and she fired at Dellinger's head without hesitation. But Dellinger's speed was much faster than she imagined. His already elongated neck simply twisted slightly to avoid the bullets. However, Baby 5's actions weren't entirely in vain. At the very least, she successfully drew Dellinger's aggression from Sasuke to herself. The dual enhancement of Fighting Fish and Snake Person doubled the ferocity within Dellinger. If the specialization directions of variants like Rebecca, Lucy, and Chinjo were to retain rationality as much as possible, then Dellinger's Fighting Fish bloodline successfully made him evolve in the opposite direction. For Genjutsu to take effect, the target must possess at least some level of thought. After undergoing the transformation caused by the special gas, the vast majority of snake people were actually just caught in a kind of predatory frenzy, driven to fight by the evolutionary instinct within them. Precisely because of this, those with strong willpower could resist the temptation of this instinct. But the current Dellinger had successfully completely abandoned his humanity. Originally, he was the type to anger easily. Because of his half-fighting fish bloodline, Dellinger was prone to losing his rationality upon contact with blood or when injured. And now, he had become something even more frenzied than a beast. Roar. The enlarged Dellinger swung upon the size of a ship's wheel toward Baby 5. Seeing this, Baby 5's hands instinctively transformed into blades, ready to parry and counterattack. Bang. But to her surprise, Dellinger's large hand never reached her. The entire figure was kicked away by Sasuke. After realizing what happened, Baby 5's face immediately showed a touched expression. Darling, to protect me. Sasuke looked somewhat helplessly at the woman with stars in her eyes before him. I'm telling you, being infatuated is fine, but you should consider the situation dash. Whoosh. Before Sasuke could finish his last word, his entire figure disappeared from in front of Baby 5. In his place was Dellinger, whose body had expanded once again, now showing numerous snake and fighting fish characteristics. Apart from still having limbs, the current Dellinger could hardly be recognized as human. The corners of his mouth continuously widened, sharp canines and fangs growing intertwined and extending past his lips. Besides the fish fins on his back, he had actually grown a long snake tail. Drip, drip. Drool continuously dripped down from the panting of this enormous monster. His eyeballs, positioned on either side of his head due to skull deformation, scanned the surroundings like a chameleon's, moving along different trajectories, trying to locate its prey. Bastard. Baby 5 directly spat out the cigarette from her mouth, brought her hands together, transforming them into a long cannon, and fired point blank at the giant monster. Boom. Smoke billowed. Baby 5's figure was sent flying backward, only stopping after crashing into a wall. That wasn't an ordinary solid iron cannon. The people of the Don Quixote family weren't complete fools. After understanding Baby 5's ability, Doflamingo had also tried to have her learn more in-depth weapon knowledge. After all, theoretically, as long as Baby 5 could understand and the existence of such a weapon was indeed reasonable, she could replicate it. It's just that, on one hand, Baby 5's learning ability was quite limited, and on the other, Doflamingo also found it difficult to acquire scientific weapons of the level made by someone like Vegapunk. So he could only settle for the next best thing, having Baby 5 choose the most powerful cannons from the arms they trafficked to simulate. At this close range, firing a cannon shell, the recoil alone made her feel like vomiting blood. And that wasn't all. Looking at her left arm hanging limp and powerless, Baby 5 felt her shoulder along with half her body go numb from the pain. In just that instant, was that enough to launch such a counterattack? A casual punch shattered her bones. However, Baby 5's attack did solidly hit Dellinger. Dellinger was, after all, flesh and blood, and currently unable to use armament hockey. Getting hit point blank by a cannon shot actually punched a hole clear through him. The giant monster stared blankly at the half-meter wide hole in its abdomen. Then, pain stimulated it into letting out a roar of fury. Roar. Dellinger fiercely pounded the flesh around the injured area, seemingly enraged at the body part that caused him pain. Baby 5 thought the monster might die from this self-mutilation. Unexpectedly, the flesh around the gaping wound actually began to spread like soft mud. In just a few seconds, a mass of deep red flesh plugged the original wound. You've got to be kidding me. When she saw Dellinger turn his gaze toward her, Baby 5 uttered these words somewhat despairingly. She wanted to run, but she didn't want to abandon Sasuke, whose condition was unknown, so she still chose to transform into a weapon, adopting a combat stance against Dellinger once more. Whoosh. Suddenly, a strong wind blew from somewhere, scattering the surrounding dust. Immediately after, Baby 5 saw Sasuke, completely unharmed, appearing not far away. You're too weak. Get out of here quickly. Perhaps because Baby 5 had never shown any hostility toward him from start to finish, even though Sasuke knew she was from the opposing side, he still kindly advised her. However, Baby 5 didn't care at all about what Sasuke said. Instead, she looked at him with joy. That's wonderful, darling. I'm so glad you're okay. Truly wonderful. Even with dust from being knocked away still on her face, looking utterly disheveled, Baby 5 was laughing happily at this moment. That sincere expression seemed completely genuine. Foolish woman. Whether it was helplessness or something else, Sasuke really didn't know how to deal with someone as good-natured as Baby 5. Even though they had only just met for the first time. Sasuke closed his eyes, then opened them again. The Mangekyo pattern rotated within his pupils. Hey, beast. Dellinger seemed to understand that address, sharply turning his head. Of course, it might also be his beastly instinct warning him. And you. Orochimaru, I know you're watching. In the room at the top of the palace, Orochimaru wasn't particularly surprised by Sasuke's words. His name wasn't a secret, it wasn't strange for others to know it. Even without considering whether Baby 5 might leak it, those low-ranking members also knew of his existence. Since you enjoy peeping so much, then open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Because later, you'll end up the same as him. The beast Dellinger seemed to have lost patience, instinctive warnings could no longer suppress his bestial nature. Roar. The creature roared, charging towards Sasuke's location. Vibrations traveled from the ground to the surroundings. The terrifying physique over 10 meters tall brought with it even more immense power. Compared to Dellinger, Sasuke at this moment couldn't even reach the other's knee in height. Truly, jumping up to hit your knee. But the next moment, a massive purple silhouette emerged from within Sasuke. Susanoo. Chapter 444, Chapter 444 The Blazing-Eyed Sasuke. Under Baby 5's incredulous gaze, the purple giant rose from the ground. On the other end of the den mushi, Orochimaru's eyes gradually widened as he watched the enormous figure. This power, this is it. Even he couldn't explain why he felt so excited upon witnessing Sasuke's Susanoo. It was as if a voice deep within was telling him this was the power he craved. Of course, the most bewildered one was Dellinger. Even if his current IQ was close to negative, he could still at least perceive the difference in size. Question mark. Dellinger couldn't comprehend. Why had the little guy from moments ago suddenly become even bigger than him? But being crazy had its advantages. At least Dellinger didn't freeze for too long because of it. Roar. The 10-meter-tall muscular monster launched a fearless charge toward the nearly 100-meter-tall giant. It was as if he had truly become the knight charging at windmills in the story. Sasuke looked down at the horde of snake people below and the little figure charging toward him, his eyes filled with coldness. That lofty, condescending view gave him a momentary illusion of being a god. But soon, he cast this illusion aside. This was nothing. Even though he wasn't exerting the Susanoo's full power now, he had witnessed his ancestor, Uchiha Madara, in action. That perfect form was truly what could be called awe-inspiring, like a god. Yet even Madara's perfect Susanoo was shattered by a single blow from Naruto. So, yeah, his own abilities were still far from enough. It's just that compared to his other skills, the Susanoo was more convenient to use at the moment. Thud. The massive purple hand descended like a small mountain, grasping toward Dellinger's head. As if he had completely lost fear, Dellinger attacked the approaching hand without any regard. Sharp claws, pointed fangs, sharp horns, in short, every part of this monster became his weapon. However, such attacks weren't even ticklish to the Susanoo. As is well known, the essence of Susanoo is also chakra. More accurately, it's chakra transformed in form through the tool of the Sharingan. Therefore, even if a small part is damaged, the gap is replenished at an extremely fast speed. Roar. Dellinger exerted every ounce of his strength but couldn't stop himself from being seized by the giant hand. Squelch. The hand closed. Dellinger was crushed like mud, his upper and lower body separated, falling to the ground. Roar. Even with everything from the waist down, along with internal organs, crushed into paste, Dellinger's remains still struggled and roared on the ground. It was like when a hunter cuts off a snake's head, the head can still struggle instinctively a few times. For such poisonous creatures, the best method is to bury them in the earth. Boom. A giant foot stomped down, directly creating a hole in the ground. Dellinger's remains were smashed into the ground, thoroughly turned into pulp under the pressure. No matter how strong the regenerative ability after mutation, it was impossible to recover after being reduced to this state. And this kick also pierced through the ground, breaking through the barrier between the surface and the underground port. Retracting the Susanoo, Sasuke landed back on the ground. One hand held back the eager baby, 5, while he looked downward. At this moment, in the underground port below, snake people were fighting each other, with severed limbs and corpses everywhere. However, those who had been turned into toys and used as labor were ironically fortunate, they hadn't inhaled the special gas. The Don Quixote family's soldiers responsible for supervision could no longer give orders, so they found a chance to hide on the sidelines. What on earth is going on? A toy monkey asked the other toys beside it. I don't know either, but we'd better not move recklessly. We'll run after they finish fighting. The reply came from a stuffed bear. Currently, a pile of toys was hiding on the overseer's platform, watching the snake monsters below fight and kill each other. Not far from them were some toy parts. Faced with sudden chaos, some thought about self-preservation, while others wanted to seize the chance to escape. Those parts belonged to toys that had previously tried to escape amidst the chaos. Compared to snake people, they were far too fragile. Trying to perfectly avoid the snake people's fighting and successfully escape was incredibly difficult, as a casual swipe of a claw would turn them into scattered parts on the ground. Although they had been turned into toys by Sugar's devil fruit ability, if they were dismantled into parts, they would still die. These people might have been pirates, marines, or even CP agents before, but here, they were just toys. Just as many toys were trapped on the top of the platform, a large foot broke through the ceiling, and sunlight streamed in. The sunlight seemed to stimulate the snake people below. They suddenly stopped fighting and looked upward, directly meeting Sasuke's gaze as he looked down. Since eye contact was made, it was perfect. The Sharingan rotated. The snake people's movements stiffened one by one, then they curled up like hibernating animals, falling down motionless. Among those toys, some also made eye contact with Sasuke and fell under the indiscriminate genjutsu. Ugh. Sasuke withdrew the hand holding back baby 5, gently pressing against his own eyes. Such a large-scale genjutsu still put a bit of pressure on him. Ah. Darling, what's wrong? Your eyes are bleeding. Beside him, baby 5, seeing blood tears flowing from Sasuke's Sharingan, immediately panicked and began frantically searching her person for something to bandage it with. Feeling Baby Five's genuine concern, Sasuke didn't ignore her this time. He stopped her movements and, unprecedentedly, offered an explanation. It's nothing. Just a minor issue. Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan, after all, was not the eternal Mangekyo. The consequence of extensive use was like this: short-term use caused pain and bleeding, while long-term use would lead to complete blindness. To obtain the eternal Mangekyo, he would have to replace his eyes with Itachi's. But whether considering Itachi's current state, where he couldn't be interfered with by external forces, or Sasuke's own feelings, he was unwilling to accept such a cruel and vile method of gaining power. Eternal visual prowess that could only be obtained by taking the eyes of a blood relative. He didn't care. Blue flames spread out according to Sasuke's will, quickly covering his eyes. It's a pity Sasuke didn't know any power of existence, otherwise, he could have cosplayed as a flame haze. The calamity flames, in an unreasonable manner, rapidly restored Sasuke's eyes to a perfectly intact state. As Sasuke gained more mastery over his power, he understood the healing method of the calamity flames more thoroughly. Rather than healing, it was more like a restoration. This method of recovery didn't leave any scars or cause many side effects. It was as if it negated the unfortunate result of being injured, in terms of cause and effect. When the flames dissipated, Sasuke's eyes returned to their initial state, even the consumed ocular power was restored. Of course, the consumed calamity flames couldn't be restored simultaneously. But it didn't matter, as taking more hits could also replenish mana. Darling. Your eyes. Baby Five was somewhat incredulous, reaching out to touch them, but Sasuke mercilessly avoided her. It's fine now. Sasuke stood up, looking toward the entrance of the Smile Factory not far away. Our enemy's coming. Baby Five, seeing Sasuke's serious expression, also tensely stood up. However, a wave of pain came from where she had been injured by Dellinger earlier. Her legs gave way, and she was about to fall. Thud. Sasuke reached out to steady Baby Five, whose eyes were sparkling again. I can handle things here. You stay put obediently. Before Baby Five could misinterpret Sasuke's meaning, a somewhat sharp shout came through as the Smile Factory door was pushed open. Hurry, hurry. Leo. They're catching up. Two tiny flying insects were actually speaking human language. Below them, a miniature person, smaller than an ordinary person's palm, was rushing toward Sasuke's direction at an incredible speed. No. There are people ahead. Leo, stop. Chapter 445, Chapter 445 Sasuke, you're so gentle. Leo, stop. The one who shouted this was a little bug. No, looking closely, it was a miniature person with the large horn of a rhinoceros beetle. He was Kabo, captain of the Tontada Kingdom's aviation squad, the Yellow Kabo, and an eater of the Mushi Mushi no Mi model, Kabuto Mushi. Flying beside him was his colleague, Bien, an eater of the Mushi Mushi no Mi model, Suzumabachi. The miniature person called Leo was the troop leader of the Tontada tribe and a user of the Paramecia type, Nui Nui no Mi, T/N, So Fruit. The three of them were immune to the gas's effects due to their devil fruit abilities, but others in the Smile Factory weren't so lucky. Those adult humans had turned into half-human, half-snake monsters, losing their reason and fighting each other. Fortunately, although the Tontada tribe was small, their strength and speed far surpassed ordinary humans. Coupled with their agility, they could easily evade even snake people. Unfortunately, the experimental product developed by Orochimaru and Caesar seemed to affect the Tontada tribe as well. If the pink gas could bring out the beastly side within Dellinger, then what change would the gas cause on the peace-loving, simple Tontada tribe? The answer was juvenilization. Not just mentally, but even physically, obvious signs of rejuvenation appeared. The little people responsible for cultivating the artificial devil fruits showed varying degrees of physical youthfulness. In severe individual cases, they directly reverted to an infantile state. Besides that, there was unconsciousness. Regardless of whether their bodies changed, any Tontada tribe's member who wasn't a devil fruit user quickly fell into a deep sleep, unable to be awakened no matter how Leo and the others called them. But this wasn't entirely bad news. The snake people seemed only interested in moving, living creatures. At least in this state, those Tontada tribe's workers wouldn't become targets for the factory snake people. But if they didn't act fast, other dangers might appear. Just as Leo's thoughts wandered, his companion's exclamation snapped him back to reality. But with his speed and the distance to the adult humans ahead, braking now was obviously too late. Move out of the way. Despite the Tontada tribe's small size, being solidly hit by one would likely injure most people. This is. Sasuke clearly saw the appearances of Leo and the other two, then casually made a few hand seals, directly casting a very small-scale swamp of the underworld. Unsurprisingly, Leo's speed drastically reduced after stepping into the mud, and he couldn't generate much impact. Of course, the cost was that he was completely covered in mud, turning into an ugly mud figurine. Ah, that's great. Good thing no one was hurt. Bien, in the hornet form, didn't mind Leo's muddy appearance. Instead, she was pleased they hadn't accidentally hurt anyone. It must be said, the Tontada tribe was too kind. From earlier intelligence, Sasuke knew this tribe was the special race being exploited by the Donkixote family to cultivate artificial devil fruits. It's you. That weird adult human. At this moment, Leo, having roughly wiped the mud from his eyes, got a clear look at the two figures before him. More accurately, he saw Baby 5. That's wonderful, you didn't turn into a monster either. Quick, take us to Princess Man's Harry. Right now, only the princess can save everyone. Reminded by Leo, Bien and Kubo also noticed Baby 5 and immediately became excited. They remembered clearly, Baby 5 was from the Donkixote family, so she must know where Princess Man's Harry was. Oh. Sasuke gleaned some meaning and turned to look at Baby 5. Princess Man's Harry? Baby 5 didn't have time to explain before Leo shook off the mud on him and scurried to the front of Sasuke and Baby 5. Please, we really need to see Princess Man's Harry right now. Hearing the little people needed her, Baby 5, who had been somewhat hesitant, was immediately moved and instinctively about to agree. But Sasuke stopped her. Explain in detail. Seeing the other adult human blocking him, Leo became agitated, about to pull out his sewing needle-sized weapon, but was stopped by the more level-headed rhinoceros beetle captain, Kubo. Don't be rash, Leo. He means no harm. Bien also flew over at this moment, looked at Sasuke, then at the Smile Factory still echoing with fighting sounds, and chose to explain the whole story. Leo and the other two had come out this time to find the Tontada tribe's princess, Man's Harry. Even though Princess Man's Harry had a strange illness, in the current situation, only the princesses, Chiyu no Mi, might be able to save them. T/N, heal fruit. However, in reality, the princess is ill, was just a lie the Donkixote family used to deceive the Tontada tribe. They took advantage of the Tontada tribe's simple, trusting nature, using the excuse that Princess Man's Harry has a strange illness that can only be cured with smile fruits to trick the tribe into cultivating artificial devil fruits for them. After all, besides using their speed and size to stealthily steal things, what the Tontada tribe excelled at was their miraculous cultivation skills. They even claimed, there is no plant in the world we cannot grow. Precisely because of this, Baby 5 showed that hesitant expression when she heard Leo's words. So that's how it is. Sasuke gently nodded, then looked at Baby 5 beside him. The Tontada tribe's members might not see it, but he could. Baby 5 opened her mouth. Under Sasuke's gaze, she felt she couldn't lie. Actually. Forget it, the situation is urgent now. Sasuke interrupted her first. Those things can wait until after this is over. You know where their princess is, right? Sasuke, you're so gentle. Hearing this, Baby 5 was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Seeing this, Leo and the others also became excited, immediately gathering around. Good. Then I'll entrust you with taking these little ones to find their princess and save this country. It was the first time Sasuke had spoken such a long sentence to Baby 5 and the first time he had earnestly made a request of her. His genjutsu could temporarily stop the snake people from fighting each other, but it couldn't cure them. Hearing this, Baby 5 didn't show her earlier infatuated expression. Instead, her gaze turned somewhat complicated, sweeping over the several figures, then looking at the surrounding Dressrosa, already destroyed by battle, and the severed limbs and corpses. Yes, I'd be happy to serve. Baby 5 finally showed a smile, then took Leo and the other three, running toward the rear of the Dressrosa palace. Princess Man's Harry was actually imprisoned in the chapel behind the palace, not too far from here. And right after the group left, Sasuke turned his gaze forward. Thud. A tall figure leaped down from midair, landing in front of Sasuke. Strong. With just one look, Sasuke could sense the other party's formidable presence, a feeling no less intense than that from the red-haired, Shanks or demon heir, Bullet. Oh. So it was you just now, kid. Yamato was also sizing up Sasuke, full of curiosity. In her right hand, she held a figure familiar to Sasuke. Viola, whom he had seen just once before. Chapter 446, Chapter 446. Since when has there been a young master for several decades? Just as Sasuke could sense Yamato's strength, Yamato could also feel that Sasuke was no ordinary individual. Quite rare to encounter someone like you here. Yamato looked at Sasuke with eager interest, clearly very intrigued. After all, she had never seen a devil fruit user with such abilities before. Time shifts back a bit. Non-samurai Ice Fang. Yamato transformed into the human beast form of the mythical Zoan, Okuchi no Makami, and from her mouth, unleashed a super wide-range freezing breath, instantly turning all snake people along with the entire port into ice sculptures. Even snake people who were farther away and not directly hit began to slow down under the continuously spreading cold air. Snakes are ectothermic animals, and their body temperature changes with the environment. Therefore, they hibernate in low temperatures to survive the cold winter. Evidently, these snake people affected by the gas inherited the same characteristic. Seeing Yamato's breath attack rivaling Kaido's, both X-Drake and Who's Who's hearts skipped a beat. The former understood the power gap between himself and Yamato, realizing it was nearly impossible to escape from this young master to deliver a message. The latter completely abandoned his little schemes. Actually, this notion had mostly faded when he saw Yamato knock out two sweet commanders with a few swings of her kanabo earlier. Now, it was just the final nail in the coffin. What could he do then? With just that breath attack, his sorrow wouldn't get him far enough before the freezing air turned him into a statue. But Who's Who, ever the experienced opportunist, quickly found a new path from the current situation. Who's Who's idea was simple. Kaido was almost 60 this year, and he could probably only rule the Beast's pirates for about 10 more years, right? Since when has there been a young master for several decades? Since Yamato was this powerful, inheriting Kaido's mantle probably wasn't too far off. Regardless of whether the current situation was the Don Quixote family's doing, seizing Dressrosa definitely wouldn't go smoothly now. His plan to gain merit with Kaido through this opportunity was successfully ruined. So why not change his approach and sincerely curry favor with this young master? If he could build a good relationship with the young master now. But soon, Who's Who remembered Yamato's undisguised disgust before they came. No matter. There must still be a chance. Who's Who gritted his teeth, then suddenly put on a righteous and indignant expression, stepping forward to slap down Treble, who was also affected by the freezing breath. Bastards. To ambush the Beast's pirates, you actually used so many innocent people. Hearing this, not only Treble but even the other Beast's pirates members showed expressions of disbelief. Among them, X-Drake and Who's Who's own subordinates were the most shocked. They all knew Who's Who's character, and since when did he become so kind-hearted? But when X-Drake looked at Yamato, he understood what was really going on. This guy is really sharp. Unfortunately, this deliberate act didn't earn Who's Who much favor. Yamato still just gave him a cold glance, then used Takeru to lift Treble from the ground. What exactly is going on? Even though Treble had a layer of mucus distributed on his body surface as a disguise, making the kanabo incapable of truly piercing him, he still didn't dare ignore the question from the person before him. Such power was something the current Don Quixote family could no longer withstand. This is. Treble's mind raced, quickly seizing a fleeting key point. It's Orochimaru. He must be behind this. After hesitating for a few seconds, Treble chose to betray Orochimaru. This shouldn't have been a difficult decision. If possible, he'd love to add insult to injury. The key was that Diamante and Sugar were still in Orochimaru's hands, so he had to consider the consequences before. Of course, he couldn't worry too much now. If something happened to Sugar, the Don Quixote family would probably instantly become public enemies. But that was still better than being killed by the monster in front of him right away. Over the years, Treble's ability to gradually expand the Don Quixote family in the underworld relied on recognizing the situation and knowing how to play both sides. Orochimaru. Yamato looked back at the Tobarapo, receiving only blank looks and head shakes. Clearly, no one had heard that name. He escaped from Big Mom and came to the Don Quixote family. He's a despicable villain. The young master kindly took him in, but he secretly plotted to seize Dressrosa. Treble's acting skills kicked in, lies flowing freely from his mouth. However, Yamato remained unmoved. Although she didn't have Naruto's observation haki ability to discern lies, having been a hero for so many years, she naturally understood the principle of not listening to just one side of the story. At that moment, a purple giant suddenly rose from the ground, attracting everyone's attention. What is that? Before the others could react, Yamato directly threw Treble to the Tobarapo. Keep them under guard. I'll go see what's happening over there. Then, regardless of the others' reactions, she leaped onto a rooftop and quickly ran toward where the purple giant appeared. While passing a certain warehouse, Yamato also saw Viola there, using her tears transformed into whales to attack snake people. Compared to other devil fruit abilities, Viola's practical combat ability was rather lacking. Hot iron tear. Ah. Although the steel whale had considerable power, its speed was a shortcoming. Coupled with Viola's own physical fitness and reaction speed not keeping up, the snake people transformed from Don Quixote family's grunts quickly adapted to this attack. They were fast, and after sacrificing one or two snake people, they successfully closed in on Viola. Sharp nails soon scratched this violet flower. Just as Viola thought she was about to die at the hands of these monsters, a hero descended from the heavens. What a tall woman. That was Viola's first impression. What terrifying strength. That was the immediate follow-up feeling. Ha! The kanabo became a blur, instantly turning the snake people into scattered meat flakes. Meeting me, you're really quite lucky. Yamato didn't mind the bloodstains on herself, slung the kanabo over her shoulder, and gave Viola a bright smile. Most people in the city had turned into snake people, and only devil fruit users could avoid this fate. However, this wasn't necessarily a good thing. Compared to their own kind, the snake people seemed more inclined to target devil fruit users, this a moving meat. Devil fruit users capable of fighting naturally didn't fear snake people who only had strength and speed, but there were also those like Viola who weren't very skilled in combat. Alright, then you stay here obediently. Halfway through her sentence, Yamato sensed more snake people approaching this direction. Looking at Viola, then at the distant purple giant, Yamato didn't think much, directly scooping up Viola with an exclamation from the latter. Although I have something important to do right now. I still can't just leave you here. She didn't know anything about being gentle with women. She simply carried Viola like a bundle under her arm and started parkouring. It wasn't until the scenery before her began changing drastically and her body was being flung left and right that Viola reacted. Please, put me, down, The delicate violet flower couldn't withstand such treatment as a burden and soon felt nauseous from the shaking. Ah. What did you say? Yamato, whether she didn't hear clearly or was deliberate, directly ignored Viola's words and continued charging toward the purple giant she had seen earlier. Is this woman crazy? Now, Viola's impression of Yamato changed once again. By the time they were less than 500 meters from the incident site, Sasuke had already dismissed the Susanoo. But this distance was nothing to Yamato's observation haki. Standing on the rooftop, ignoring Viola beside her who was about to vomit, she focused her senses slightly. Good, right over there. Chapter 447, the redundant Viola. Sasuke's gaze first focused on Yamato for a moment, then shifted to Viola's face beside her. If you don't put her down soon, she's going to vomit on you. These words directly broke the previously somewhat tense atmosphere between the two. Huh? Oh. Sorry. I wasn't paying attention just now. Well, mystery solved. Yamato indeed wasn't being deliberate earlier. She somewhat flusteredly put Viola down. This ill-fated violet flower, who hadn't died in the sudden snake people disaster, nearly withered in the whirlwind. Ugh. I'm fine. Thank you for saving me earlier. Viola gestured that she was okay, but couldn't help covering her mouth. After vomiting for a bit, she finally lifted her head again, looking around. Ah. It's you. Viola immediately reacted upon seeing Sasuke. Even though Sasuke no longer looked like Kakashi, Viola had already seen his true appearance using her Gyro no Mi before, so she could still recognize him. Seeing that the other recognized him, Sasuke didn't bother pretending anymore, his expression turning cold again. Someone from the Don Quixote family. I let you off earlier, and now you come delivering yourself to me. Do you really think I won't kill? Although his words said this, Yamato couldn't sense any killing intent from Sasuke. Because of this, she didn't choose to intervene. Instead, she looked at Viola beside her. He says you're from the Don Quixote family. Unlike Sasuke, Yamato said this without any malice on her face, but the kanabo in her hand had already struck the ground with a thud. Viola was silent for a second. She wanted to deny it, but then recalled all the dirty deeds she had indeed done for the Don Quixote family over the years. Although she had constantly hypnotized herself with reasons like, enduring humiliation, and, this is the price of revenge, she truly couldn't claim to be innocent. So that's how it is. Boom. A strong gust of wind directly blew Viola's hair into disarray. The kanabo now lay horizontally in front of Viola. On the kanabo, besides Yamato's hand, there was another large hand covered in black fur with sharp nails. Why stop me? Yamato tilted her head, looking at Sasuke, her face still devoid of malice. As if the one about to smash Viola's head with the kanabo wasn't her. Let her finish speaking. Sasuke felt the immense force transmitted from the kanabo, reaffirming his earlier judgment in his heart. This woman was indeed very strong. In contrast, Yamato was much more relaxed, not even having entered her human-beast transformation. Of course, this was also because she wasn't going all out. Only then did Viola belatedly realize she had almost died. Died at the hands of the person who had just saved her. Instead, the men she had tried to ambush saved her. Someone once told me, if something can be explained clearly with words, don't make it so awkward. Otherwise, it leads to many unnecessary misunderstandings, ending up with bloodshed in the end. Recalling his different experiences in the ninja world and this world, Sasuke gained a new understanding of Naruto's words. Unlike the ninja world, most people in this world were straightforward, the type to say what they meant. But there were still a small portion of individuals even more awkward than those in the ninja world who would often say things like, bear one's own sin silently. The expression this person showed was exactly like those people. For such people, if you don't make them willingly speak clearly, they can always tie themselves in knots. Like just now, if he hadn't intervened, Viola would have been gone. My name is Viola, Riku Viola, daughter of the former king Riku Doldo III. The terror between life and death finally diluted the inner conflict in Viola. Of course, perhaps the miserable state of Dressrosa today also played a part. She stopped agonizing over her past actions, fully revealing everything she knew about the Don Quixote family and the inside story of the current situation. Including how Doflamingo took Dressrosa back from the Riku family over a decade ago and how he used the Hobi Hobi no Mi to continuously eliminate unstable elements. During this, Viola didn't avoid mentioning the evil deeds she had done under Doflamingo. In the process of maintaining the Don Quixote family's rule, she had indeed played a part. Later, Viola brought up Orochimaru. Ever since Doflamingo left last time, he hasn't returned. On the surface, Dressrosa is still managed by the Don Quixote family, but the real leadership has actually fallen into the hands of that Orochimaru. Recalling the scenes she had seen earlier, Viola's tone became more serious. That Orochimaru is definitely not someone easy to deal with. Even Treble and the others are under his coercion. I've heard a bit about his troublesome nature. Hearing this, Sasuke nodded. He was, of course, referring not to Orochimaru Mk2 in this world, but the old snake back in the ninja world who had orchestrated a series of schemes. Next time I go back, I need to deal with that snake too. After mentally marking Orochimaru Mki with a cross, Sasuke heard Yamato speak. Orochimaru? Come to think of it, that slimy guy also mentioned that name. That he's the one behind all this or something. Yamato crossed her arms, committing the name Orochimaru to memory. It definitely didn't sound like a good person. As long as we find this Orochimaru, we can solve the current situation, right? Faced with Yamato's question, Viola didn't give a definite answer. This. I can only say he definitely understands this stuff better than we do. At the very least, it's our chance to save this country. Hearing words like save, Yamato's eyes immediately lit up. She directly placed a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Hey, bro, what do you say? Interested in going together? Nonchalantly brushing off Yamato's hand, Sasuke turned and said without looking back. I can handle that guy alone. Oh, right. A few little people calling themselves the Tontata tribe came by earlier. They said if we find their princess, we might be able to save this place. Hearing this, Viola immediately looked up. Princess Mansharry. Yes. And Princess Mansharry. With Viola's Gyro no Mi, almost nothing could hide from her sight. Plus, having been in the Don Quixote family for so long, she naturally knew about the imprisoned Princess Mansharry. But when she looked at the opposite side with surprise, she realized that not only Sasuke, but even Yamato beside him had already walked far toward the direction of the castle. Hey, bro, I'm called Yamato. Not to boast, but I'm quite a famous hero around Wano country. Yamato seemed to have a pretty good impression of Sasuke, constantly trying to put an arm around his shoulder. It's just that Sasuke still maintained that aloof, keep your distance demeanor. Uchiha Sasuke. A ninja. A ninja. Come to think of it, I know quite a few ninjas too. They're not like me. Sasuke had also heard from Naruto about those unreliable ninjas in Wano country. Oh. Tell me more. Although the two seemed to be having an awkward conversation, one cold, one warm, Sasuke responded to every sentence, clearly not having a bad first impression of Yamato. In contrast, Viola, left behind by the two amidst a crowd of sleeping snake people, seemed somewhat redundant. Huh. Weren't you just asking me? Who am I? Why am I here? Filled with question marks, Viola looked at the surrounding snake people. After thinking for a few seconds, she decisively chased after the direction the two had left. Chapter 448, Chapter 448. How can they be so similar? For Sasuke, besides Baby 5, who had been sticking to him, Yamato left a deeper impression on him than Viola. After all, in this man's eyes, strength was far more important than appearance or personality. At least from Sasuke's perspective, Viola couldn't beat Baby 5. Yes, that's the plain and simple way of assessing. Especially when seeing Yamato truly act. Non-samurai Ice Fang. Still starting with a breath attack, freezing air swept across the field, directly turning a 1-kilometer radius into a world of ice crystals. Within the range covered by this breath, regardless of whether they were snake people, any living creature would be frozen. Seeming to notice Sasuke's gaze, Yamato, after reverting to human form, waved her hand to explain. Don't worry. They're only temporarily frozen. It's fine to thaw them once you have a treatment method. Yamato had a good grasp of her freezing breath's power. When holding back, the Okuchi no Mikami's freezing breath could freeze without harming. She had done this often in Wano country. Those who committed minor crimes, not deserving death, were punished by being turned into ice statues as a penalty. After the ice melted, these people were still lively, at most with some cold symptoms. Although Yamato seemed ready to fight at the slightest disagreement, she actually pondered each time in her heart. Even if Sasuke hadn't intervened earlier, the Kanabo wouldn't have struck Viola. Ah. Come to think of it, where's that woman? Only then did Yamato belatedly realize Viola, who had been following them, was gone. Fallen behind, probably. To be honest, Sasuke hadn't paid much attention either. Is that so? Yamato nodded. Along the way, almost all snake people were either frozen by her or trapped in genjutsu. At least for Viola, there shouldn't be much danger. Then, she looked at the nearby castle. A pity. I wanted her to point us a shortcut. The castle originally belonged to the Don Quixote family, built 900 years ago, not the work of the Rica family. Whether it was deliberately imitating the Red Line, Mary Geos, or just pure coincidence, this castle was built on extremely high terrain. Long bridges extended from both sides of the castle, with hills like towering pillars below. Structurally, it bore some resemblance to Mary Geos. The person seated atop the castle could freely overlook this nation. Its owner before last was King Riku, the last was Doflamingo. As for now. Kukuku, they're coming, aren't they? Orochimaru's face showed not a trace of nervousness. He slowly walked into a certain secret room, looking at Sugar, who was controlled by Monet and Diamante. Your task is complete. Whether you want to stay or leave is up to you. As Orochimaru's words fell, Diamante and Monet voluntarily moved away from Sugar. Orochimaru also stepped aside from the doorway, leaving a path. Sugar only needed to walk out to regain her freedom. However, Sugar just stared at Orochimaru with hatred, not making any move. After all, Monet was still in Orochimaru's hands. Is that so? Orochimaru seemed not at all surprised by the situation. He turned to Monet. Then you accompany your younger sister. Saying this, he suddenly turned his head, twisting at an impossible angle to stare at Sugar. But you better not move around freely from now on, this is also for your own safety. After speaking, Orochimaru's neck slowly returned to normal. Sugar's gaze toward Orochimaru now held a bit more horror. In that brief moment of eye contact just now, she clearly saw Orochimaru's face, which had begun completely transforming into a snake's. Just like those snake people, even the shape of his bones had changed. Hey! So sneaky! Yamato shouted as she watched Sasuke riding a flame cloud into the air. From their brief earlier exchange, she had some speculations about Sasuke's devil fruit ability. Judging from the appearance of that hand, it should be a Zoan-type fruit like hers. As expected, when Sasuke fully transformed into the beast form of Wado, Yamato's guess was confirmed. In fact, it wasn't just both being Zoan-type fruit users. Sasuke and Yamato were both mythical Zoan types of the Inu no Mi. One could exhale freezing breath, the other could consume flames. In a way, they were not only similar but even quite symmetrical. They had both even reached the awakening level, each with a flame cloud cape behind them. It's just that Sasuke's flame cloud was bluish-black, while Yamato's was white with a hint of light blue. Seeing Yamato, like a child, waving her kanabo wildly on the ground, shouting things like sneaky, black lines also appeared on Sasuke's forehead. This guy would probably get along well with Naruto and Konohamaru. Whoosh! Yamato also transformed into her beast form, directly leaped onto a protruding rock wall, then used the force to jump again, reaching Sasuke's height. Seeing this, Sasuke just shook his head. I'm going up first. After saying this, he decisively rode the flame cloud, flying higher. Although Sasuke's flying speed couldn't compare to Kairin's, it was still faster than pure jumping. At least, with Yamato currently alternating left and right using the rock walls for leverage, she couldn't catch up to his ascent speed, only watching Sasuke's figure grow smaller. Oh. Yamato's forepaws were almost spinning into smoke, yet she still lagged behind Sasuke by a distance. Seeming to hear Yamato's shouts, Sasuke, floating in the sky, glanced back but said nothing, maintaining his original speed upward. Damn it. Yamato had a competitive nature, just like Naruto in the past, easily provoked and liked competing in various trivial matters. Suddenly, an idea flashed in this beast's pirate's young master's mind. Since this guy's ability is so similar to mine, is it possible I can fly too? Originally, in Yamato's worldview, someone like her old man Kaido, a dragon, flying was natural. For her own ground-based mythical Zoan not to fly also made sense. But now, seeing another Inu no Mi user, Sasuke, also able to fly, there was no reason she couldn't. Thinking of it, she acted. Yamato imitated Sasuke, controlling the flame cloud behind her, gathering it into a mass under her feet, then gripping it tightly with her forepaws. Sure enough, those flame clouds had substance. Yamato usually never paid attention, purely treating them as decorations. But this was, after all, her first time riding clouds, so her proficiency was far too lacking. Yamato's entire giant dog body was rigid, not daring to make any unnecessary movements. And the flame cloud, under her control, began to slowly rise. Yes. I can fly too. Yamato controlled the flame cloud, flying faster and faster, soon approaching Sasuke's height. It had to be admitted that, if comparing pure physical attributes, Yamato was still miles ahead of the current Sasuke. Her physical endurance and vitality were stronger than Sasuke, a minor. Similarly, after mastering cloud riding technique, Yamato could exert more power, so surpassing Sasuke in speed wasn't strange. Humph. As Yamato slowly surpassed Sasuke, the corners of her mouth almost reached her ears. Although she said nothing, the show-off meaning wasn't hidden at all. How childish. Sasuke really felt somewhat at a loss. Humph. I'm faster than you. Yamato's response was simple. She still showed that somewhat smug smile while saying this, growing more and more like a certain someone in Sasuke's memory. Chapter 449, Chapter 449 The Muscular Monster Snake. As expected, during her ascent, Yamato still couldn't control the flame cloud's density properly. She lost her balance, about to fall downward. Yamato hadn't learned the air walk technique. So, if she couldn't grab onto the rock wall, she'd likely end up like her old man usually did, charging into the ground with her body. She wouldn't die, but it would still hurt. Her claws instinctively tightened on the flame cloud, but the flame cloud, now more slippery than wide noodles in a hot pot, slid right out from between her claws. Thwack. A familiar large black-furred paw caught Yamato from behind. No need to be in such a hurry. Sasuke attached chakra to his feet, standing on the sheer rock wall as if on level ground. Yamato stared dumbfounded. Is this also one of the mythical Zoan abilities? Saying this, she tried to break free from Sasuke's grip, attempting to place her own paws on the rock wall. Hey! Stop moving. We have serious business. Unlike others Sasuke had grabbed, Yamato's strength was truly enough to break free from his grip. Sasuke even had to use both hands to barely control this big dog. How to put it, if using dog breeds as analogy, the proud and independent Sasuke was a Doberman, while Yamato was undoubtedly a husky. And you better not provoke her, otherwise, the more you provoke, the more energetic she gets, and the unfortunate one in the end can only be you. Suddenly, both of them froze in their movements. In their observation hockey perception, among the chaotic auras above, a big one suddenly appeared. The two exchanged a glance. You sensed it too, right? Yeah, looks like that guy named Orochimaru isn't planning to surrender quietly. When Sasuke and Yamato arrived before the castle, what they saw was a scene of snakes dancing wildly. Enveloped in the pink gas, the castle's guards and servants had already turned into snake people, beginning to fight each other. And when the two appeared, the snake people's gazes unanimously turned in this direction. You handle it or me? Just as Sasuke turned his head to ask, Yamato transformed into a white blur and charged out. Okay, I shouldn't have asked. Shaking his head, Sasuke stood still and closed his eyes. Since Yamato actively cleared the cannon fodder, he would be responsible for finding Orochimaru. Within this range, Sasuke's observation haki could already completely cover the entire castle. Scanning from bottom to top, besides the mindless snake people, the most prominent spots were a small room and the rooftop. The aura wasn't strong, even weaker than an average adult. In Sasuke's perception, there were two auras in the secret room, one stronger, one weaker. But saying that, even the stronger one wasn't that strong, only about the level of those officers at the summit war. And on the top floor, there was only one relatively stronger aura. Using the marine conversion method, for comparison, it was at least at vice admiral level. Of course, not on the level of Fujitora, that guy was obviously a special case among vice admirals. It seemed Orochimaru was on the top floor. Opening his eyes, Yamato had also mostly finished. The entire first and second floors of the castle were now covered in ice and snow. Let's go. That guy should be on the top floor. Whoa. Let's go finish this mastermind. Regarding Orochimaru, who plunged a country into chaos, turning it into hell, Yamato had no problem killing mercilessly. A hero's righteousness wasn't stubbornly merciful and soft. This was also guidance from the great hero. Compared to the high rock platform below, the castle seemed much shorter. They didn't even need flame cloud assistance. Thud, thud. The two landed almost simultaneously on the rooftop balcony. The aura in their perception, much stronger than the other snake people, was in the room ahead. Ugh, this smell is really awful. Yamato suddenly covered her nose, and Sasuke also frowned involuntarily. The gas here was denser than below. And perhaps because of the Inu Inu no Mi, both had enhanced senses of smell to varying degrees. This scent, which others might find at most sickly sweet, didn't smell good to their noses. Let's finish this quickly. Don't kill him for now. Sasuke didn't rashly ignite the calamity flames. Because besides turning people into snake people, the pink mist was, in essence, flammable gas that would ignite easily. He had observed this before coming here. Huh. Hearing Sasuke say to spare Orochimaru, Yamato tilted her head in confusion. If that princess man's Harry can't cure the snake people, we'll have to interrogate Orochimaru for the cure. Huh. Interrogation. I'm not very good at that. Yamato rubbed her temples with both hands. She still preferred straightforward combat. It's fine. Leave that to me. The Sharingan is a good partner for interrogation. Pushing the door open, what greeted the two was a somewhat dim room and a massive snake person with a physique deserving of the term burly. No, burly was somewhat inappropriate. The excessively expanded, even somewhat deformed muscles deserved the term muscular monster snake. Even with Yamato's height exceeding 2.6 meters, she only reached about the waist of this snake person. So big. Unlike Yamato, who was marveling at the snake person's size, Sasuke's Sharingan quickly scanned, finally landing on the somewhat familiar face of the huge snake person. Even though the snake person's head had undergone some transformation, one could still see traces of Orochimaru's features from the facial contour. Actually, this was a change brought by the snake person transformation. Originally, the body Orochimaru's main self created wasn't that similar to him, it was closer to a younger Haiden. After Orochimaru and Caesar completely teamed up and began researching and experimenting on this special body, his appearance instead became more and more like Orochimaru's main self. You've kept me waiting, you too. The familiar effeminate voice is identical to the one Sasuke heard during the Chunin exams. Yamato, right. Young master of the Beast's pirates. Clearly, from earlier surveillance footage, Orochimaru also knew Yamato's identity. Hearing this, Sasuke glanced sideways slightly. He hadn't heard Yamato introduce herself with this identity yet. But saying young master, so she was that Kaido's daughter. The Sharingan swept over Yamato, making her shudder. Hey! What are you looking at? Yamato roared, very displeased. Personality and the horns on her head matched, just her appearance wasn't as rugged as her father's. Seeing Sasuke silent, Yamato turned angrily toward Orochimaru. I'm not any beast's young master. I'm the white hero of Wano country. Remember that. By the time she said the last word, Yamato's figure had already vanished from her spot. Takaru, wrapped in cold air, smashed directly toward Orochimaru. Clearly, although angry, Yamato hadn't lost her reason, remembering to spare Orochimaru. Otherwise, what would be wrapped on the Kanaba wouldn't be cold air but conqueror's hockey. Clang. The large and small figures collided, emitting a sound like the striking of a giant bell. Kukuku, no need to be so impatient. The grayish-black cloak on Orochimaru's body had now become incredibly hard, withstanding Yamato's strike. But truly powerful. The offspring of the strong are born stronger than ordinary people. Seeing Orochimaru still stomping on Yamato's sensitive spots, Sasuke didn't indulge him either. He widened his Sharingan, about to cast Genjutsu. Squelch. Under Sasuke and Yamato's somewhat surprised gaze, Orochimaru actually unhesitatingly used his fingers to gouge out his own eyes. An ability to control others through eye contact. Perhaps tricky for others. But fortunately, I don't need eyes to see you. Saying this, Orochimaru stuck out his long snake tongue, then with a large wave, curtains, tablecloths, all sorts of fabrics flew around. Those seemingly lightweight fabrics instantly hardened as they approached Sasuke and Yamato. Swoosh. 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 The tablecloth cut into the ground like blades, while the curtains were held by Orochimaru, transforming into the shape of a long sword. Come, kill me, or subdue me. You'll both get the answers you want. Chapter 450, Chapter 450 The True Killing Move. Sonic Boom. Electricity crackled as the Kanaba was swung. A staff wave akin to a slash shot out from the tip of Takaru, hurtling toward Orochimaru. Kukuku. Facing the astonishingly powerful attack, Orochimaru simply shifted his position casually, brandishing the soft cloth in his hand, causing it to ripple out in overlapping layers. Thud. The sonic boom struck the first layer of cloth, producing a metallic clanging sound. That layer of cloth didn't hold for even an instant before being pierced. But behind it were many more layers of equally hard cloth. After being weakened layer by layer, the wave had lost most of its power by the time it reached Orochimaru. A straightforward attack, but the power is truly impressive. The two opponents didn't know, but Orochimaru knew his own business. Those things that looked like cloth were actually alloys with terrifying levels of toughness. These sea warriors are truly unreasonable in their strength. Those alloys were used as armor plates for warships, and they might not even be pierced by a cannonball. Yet, before this guy's casual strike, these alloy plates could only block it by continuously using layers to weaken it. However, The corner of Orochimaru's mouth, hidden by his cloak, curled up. The stronger, the better. He lightly tapped the ground with his scaly foot, and instantly, the floor tiles of the entire castle came to life, undulating like waves. TCH. So many strange tricks. Yamato leaped into the air, adjusting her balance mid-flight. The ground beneath her feet had silently transformed into spikes. Fortunately, during the earlier climb, Yamato had mastered the ability of brief flight. Using flame clouds as footholds, she successfully flew into midair. "Hey, are you okay?" When she turned back to look at Sasuke, she was surprised to find that he seemed completely unaffected by the distorted ground, charging toward Orochimaru as if walking on flat land. It must be said, the effect of chakra adhesion is just too suitable for naval battles. Whether it's a rocking ship or accidentally falling into the water, as long as you can attach chakra to the soles of your feet, it's no longer a problem. It was the same in this situation. Orochimaru's terrain traps couldn't hinder Sasuke's steps at all. In the blink of an eye, Sasuke was in front of Orochimaru, his sword drawn. Uchiha-style sword technique. Orochimaru's eyes had been gouged out by himself, yet he could still perceive Sasuke's movements the moment he approached. Not so easy. The curtain blade wielded in Orochimaru's hand whipped out like a swimming snake, its curved blade capable of attacking various parts of Sasuke's body simultaneously. Nameless. Like a flash of light in a cold night, Sasuke's slash was so fast it was invisible to the naked eye. After his previous experiences, Sasuke had made some improvements to his initially crude, Uchiha-style sword technique. Now, the Uchiha-style sword technique was no longer just a name without substance, purely relying on chakra power for show, as it was during the Marineford War. Of course, this didn't mean Sasuke had completely abandoned chakra and ninjutsu either. Kusanagi sword, as if destined, instantly sliced through the surrounding alloy blades, followed by a slash that severed Orochimaru's arm. This was Sasuke considering the need to keep Orochimaru alive, otherwise, that single slash would have been enough to behead him outright. TSK, that really hurts. Orochimaru acted as if nothing had happened, using his remaining clawed hand to dab at the blood from the severed arm, then casually putting it in his mouth to suck on. The sight made Yamato nauseous. But Orochimaru himself didn't care. He didn't even care about the imminent threat of death, instead looking at Sasuke with great interest. Just now, when you swung your sword, that energy, it wasn't hockey, right? His response was Sasuke's backhanded sword slash. But this slash didn't hit Orochimaru as before. Orochimaru's entire body now drifted like a sheet of paper in the wind, shifting his body along the direction of Sasuke's swing. The powers of the Hira Hira no Mi could also be used on himself, allowing him to become a flag human that could dance freely. After dodging the slash, Orochimaru's counterattack finally arrived. A thick serpent tail, which had somehow hidden among a pile of fluttering cloth, suddenly sprang up, whipping toward Sasuke's back like a steel whip. Fortunately, with observation hockey, Sasuke wouldn't be hit by such a sneak attack. Thud. The massive serpent tail and Sasuke's left hand collided midair, producing a solid sound of flesh hitting flesh. Wolf impact. The shockwave traveled directly through the serpent tail into Orochimaru's body, causing his movements to stall. Immediately after, Sasuke swung his sword horizontally, cutting off Orochimaru's other arm as well. Finally, he grabbed Orochimaru by the back of his neck and slammed him to the ground, planting a foot on his back. "Is this all you've got?" Sasuke's words were heavy with sarcasm. To be honest, Orochimaru's muscular monster snake appearance was only intimidating on the outside. Even with the devil fruit powers he had somehow acquired, at best he was at vice admiral level. Heh. Yet Orochimaru, pinned to the ground, showed no sign of defeat or frustration at all. After letting out a hoarse laugh, his neck suddenly elongated, twisting 180 degrees to bite at Sasuke's calf. Dodge. Yamato, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally found her chance to steal the kill. She came down with a Thunderbagwa, giving Orochimaru's head a home run. This blow hit Orochimaru's head squarely. Crack. The sound of shattering bone was clearly audible in the room. Hearing this, Yamato's expression, which had been smiling at securing the kill, immediately stiffened. Crap, I was a bit too hasty and didn't pay attention. Because his body was pinned under Sasuke's foot, only Orochimaru's neck and head could move. Under the friendly impact of the kanabo, Orochimaru's head spun several times before finally going limp. Watching Sasuke silently retract his foot and look at her with an expression of speechlessness, Yamato also felt somewhat embarrassed. "Ah, well, sorry about that, I didn't hold back. Admitting mistakes when you make them is one of the essential lessons for a warrior. Forget it. This guy has plenty of dirty tricks. Killing him early is a good thing." Sasuke shook his head. He could no longer sense any vitality from Orochimaru. Don't worry. We still have that what's-her-name princess. There must be a way to resolve this crisis. As if trying to make up for it, Yamato gestured animatedly in front of Sasuke. However, just as the two were about to leave, Orochimaru, who should have been dead, stood up again in a grotesque manner. It sounds like this gentleman, called Sasuke, seems to know me well. The expressions of the two turned serious again as they watched Orochimaru rise like a zombie. Because most of his jawbone had been shattered, his speech was halting. But in the mere few seconds it took for him to stand up, Sasuke and Yamato watched as his shattered skull visibly healed before their eyes. Not only that, the wounds on his severed arms had already stopped bleeding, and even short claw tips had begun to grow. Impossible, he was clearly just now. Sasuke didn't respond to Orochimaru's words, instead beginning to doubt himself internally. He remembered clearly that Orochimaru had indeed lost all signs of life earlier, and even his pulse had disappeared. Even now, it was the same. Yet he had undoubtedly stood up again. Is it a puppet? Huh. Yamato looked at Sasuke, puzzled. However, upon hearing Sasuke's words, Orochimaru simply chuckled lightly. Hee, if you insist, you could consider it that. A chilling smile appeared on his face, parts of which still had exposed flesh. I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time. Sasuke's Kusanagi sword was drawn again, ready to strike at Orochimaru. Oh, if I were you, I wouldn't do that. Orochimaru made no move to dodge. And precisely after he said this, Sasuke and Yamato's movements suddenly became stiff. How? Both Sasuke and Yamato now felt their limbs gradually slipping out of their control. Simultaneously, violent, bloodthirsty thoughts began to quietly sprout. Those evolution gas agents were created by me. Of course, I know they are ineffective against devil fruit users. Orochimaru's originally near-shattered body had now recovered enough to take on a vaguely human shape again. He slowly approached his prey like a true serpent, delivering his victory speech. So, I created another type of drug, specifically effective against you devil fruit users. After mixing them in with these gases, you couldn't tell the difference. A simple plan, right? What, did you let your guard down because you possess great power? When will you people ever abandon that power is everything mindset? Orochimaru's vocal cords and oral cavity were now fully healed, and his speech became fluid. Long before you stepped into this space, my killing move was already deployed. Now, my attack has concluded. I have won. Chapter 451, Chapter 451 Big Bang. If you don't mind, could you tell me about my past? I'm really very curious. Orochimaru moved his body, approaching Sasuke and Yamato across the distorted ground. Strangely enough. At this moment, the ground, curtains, and tablecloths had all reverted to their original materials. Those seemingly soft fabrics had now turned into oddly shaped metal constructs. So, now you're speechless. It seems I overestimated. Orochimaru couldn't finish his sentence. Because the moment he got close, Sasuke's beast-like claw had firmly grasped his head. Sasuke's eyes were now filled with violence, he was struggling to control the destructive instinct raging in his heart. It seems your willpower is even stronger than that of this beast's pirate's heir. Surprisingly, even with his head fully enveloped by Sasuke's palm, Orochimaru's voice still came out clearly. The white serpent tail that had been swung as a weapon earlier slowly raised, and Orochimaru's facial features gradually grew on it. However, perhaps wary of Sasuke's dojutsu, Orochimaru didn't create eye sockets on this new face. What, exactly are you? Sasuke forced the words out with difficulty. Under his gaze, Orochimaru seemed to melt into a flowing mass of flesh and blood, slipping through his fingers and falling to the ground. What remained in Sasuke's hand was another person. If other members of the Don Quixote family were here, they would recognize this puppet-like figure, now devoid of life, as Diamante, who had been controlled by Orochimaru earlier. All the special abilities Orochimaru had displayed just now had relied on Diamante's body, that of a devil fruit user. Yamato's attack was devastating, even her father Kaido would be dazed if hit unprepared, let alone someone like Diamante. Even with Orochimaru enhancing Diamante's body further using the gas, he still couldn't withstand that blow. Me. Orochimaru seemed a bit troubled by Sasuke's question. He thought for a few seconds, but ultimately could only shake his head. To be honest, I don't know what I'm either. I don't know who I am, nor my past. I can't even define whether I'm in a living state. The white flesh completely detached from Diamante's corpse, finally coalescing on the ground and reforming into a white-scaled, human-faced serpent. So, that's why I want you to tell me, Sasuke. Who am I, exactly? As he said this, Orochimaru suddenly lunged his head forward, aiming to bite Sasuke's neck. Seeing this, Sasuke immediately wanted to dodge, but his body felt as if it were filled with seawater, unable to move. But this was different from sea stone. Both he and Yamato still had parts of their bodies in beast form. This indicated they were only temporarily unable to control their bodies, not that they couldn't use their abilities. Though uncertain what Orochimaru intended, the general rule was not to let him succeed. A flash of sharpness crossed Sasuke's already clouding eyes. Feeling the rose-scented sweetness in the surrounding air, he clenched his teeth fiercely. Then, blue-black flames spewed from the gaps between his teeth. At first, just a few sparks, but upon contact with the high-concentration gas around them, these sparks spread outward at an astonishing speed. Boom. All living beings in Dressrosa momentarily halted their actions at this deafening roar. Shinjo, in his human serpent form, threw Pika, who was already beaten to near death, into the water and looked toward the towering castle's peak. No, there was no castle there now. The castle that had stood since the Don Quixote family began ruling this country, for over 900 years, had been completely leveled to the ground in that explosion. Simultaneously. I changed back. A pirate-like man stared incredulously at his arm, which had returned to human form, and cried out in delight. There were many like him. Those who had been turned into toys and enslaved in Dressrosa for years, even decades, all returned to human form at this moment. By now, the gas had mostly dissipated, so they didn't immediately get reinfected and turn into other monsters after returning to human form. But this wasn't entirely good news. Ah. Help me. Kill him. Ah. The snake people hadn't been interested in the toys, but when they turned back into delicious-smelling humans, these predators immediately shifted their targets. In their instincts, preying on humans took priority over cannibalism. The pirates, marines, and agents who had just regained their human forms, barely having time to adapt to their original bodies, were pounced on by snake people and met their end being torn apart. Of course, not everyone fared so poorly. Ha! Kairos, wielding a longsword picked up from a corner, effortlessly dispatched the other snake people in the Colosseum's preparation room. As a non-devil fruit user who hadn't gone to sea and didn't know hockey, Kairos' strength among ordinary warriors was peak. These beasts, physically powerful but relying only on instinct to hunt, were no match for him. Just look at Rebecca. Even with only the toy soldier as her instructor, Rebecca had trained to possess considerable swordsmanship skills. But speaking of Rebecca. At this moment, she stood rigidly in place, snake eyes fixed unmovingly on Kairos. Actually, she had remained like this from the very beginning, but now, the part of her gaze that was human gradually began to dominate. Rebecca. Kairos seemed to sense Rebecca's change. He planted his sword aside and softly called his daughter's name. Memories, once sealed away, regained their freedom. The reflection in her eyes grew clearer and clearer. A tear slid from Rebecca's eye. Dad. She was doing her best to control her vocal cords, but the words still came out somewhat unclear. But for a father, it was enough. Rebecca. My Rebecca. Even when his leg was severed, even when he was turned into a toy, the strongest gladiator Kairos, who had never shed a tear, now wept as if a dam had burst. Without any hesitation, he rushed forward and tightly embraced his daughter. Daddy. Daddy. Snakes don't shed tears, but daughters do. Cough, cough. A slender figure crawled out from the rubble. He, or rather, she, let out painful coughs. The arms and most of the body of this figure were rapidly changing from snow back to flesh and blood. Unbelievable. Orochimaru manipulated this body belonging to Monet to stand up, looking toward the secret chamber that had turned to ashes. Presumably, Sugar, the user of the Hobi Hobi no Mi, had perished in that great explosion. A bit unfortunate, but never mind. At worst, I can just search for the Hobi Hobi no Mi out on the seas later. But this guy called Sasuke really has a death wish, daring to ignite a flame in such an environment. What was meant to be a means to restrain him nearly got me killed as well. Orochimaru's understanding of the personalities of sea warriors was still insufficient. That's right, the current Sasuke already had the qualifications to be called a sea warrior. However, even such an explosion couldn't kill you. Truly exaggerated. Orochimaru turned to look. On the site of the castle, now a crater from the explosion, two figures still stood. One was Yamato, whose body had begun to show some subtle serpentification but seemed mostly unharmed. Serpentification combined with her originally formidable body allowed her to withstand that massive explosion with little issue. This made Orochimaru's eyes gleam. This was different from his evasion using the Yuki Yuki no Mi's Logia intangibility. This was genuine, hard endurance. This kind of body is so very tempting. Orochimaru's heart was filled with greed for Yamato's body, in the literal, physical sense. But at the same time, he also greatly desired the other person standing there. Tap, tap. Footsteps trailing flames extended outward from the explosion's epicenter. Sasuke limped toward Orochimaru. On his body, calamity flames directly turned him into a human-shaped torch, madly healing his injuries as if they cost nothing. If Yamato survived thanks to her formidable physique, then Sasuke relied purely on technique. The gas he inhaled exploded inside him, nearly killing him outright. But at the exact moment the explosion hit, the drug's effect binding his limbs finally dissipated. In an instant, body revival technique, regeneration ability, and Susanoo armor were all deployed simultaneously. Sasuke withstood the explosion at point blank, no, at negative distance. Unlike natural chakra powerhouses like Karen and Naruto with their massive reserves, Sasuke's usual chakra reserve was insufficient to sustain the three forbidden technique-like body revival technique. Only in that earlier situation was Sasuke forced to use forbidden technique to cling to life. Calamity Flame could heal, but it couldn't resurrect. He had to ensure he wouldn't die in the explosion. But now, it was his turn. Feeling his shattered body healing rapidly and the power rapidly swelling within his flesh, Sasuke looked toward Orochimaru in the distance, his gaze filled with killing intent. As expected, with such a treacherous individual, you absolutely cannot give them any chance. Chapter 452, Chapter 452 Possession. Even the inhaled gas has been purged. How reckless. Orochimaru watched as Sasuke, wreathed in blue flames, drew closer step by step. Not only did he not feel afraid, but he even found the mood to quip. What a dilemma. Serpentine eyes shifted between Sasuke and Yamato's bodies as Orochimaru spoke using Monet's voice. Whether it's you or her, you are both rare hosts. In comparison, these two individuals I selected. As he spoke, Orochimaru raised an arm, and the hand instantly dissipated into a flurry of snowflakes. Aside from their devil fruit abilities, are practically worthless. The gently falling fine snow soon turned into a heavy snowfall. Within a few seconds, the embers left by the explosion were blanketed in snow. The surrounding temperature plummeted. And with Sasuke's body as the center, a radius of several meters was completely empty. The snowflakes simply vaporized into steam the moment they drew near. But thanks to this ability, otherwise it wouldn't have been easy to escape from that explosion. Orochimaru's words faded midair, along with half of his body. A black werewolf shrouded in calamity flames now stood behind him, the fire on his arms still burning fiercely. Oh. You don't intend to extract the method to neutralize this gas from me anymore. Half of Orochimaru's face was burned away. With Monet's abilities, it was simply impossible to disperse via Logia intangibility before Sasuke's Haki-infused attack struck. Even among Logia-type devil fruit users, there are differences in skill. Those at the level of the three admirals indeed possessed incredibly powerful abilities, but they themselves were not weak. It wasn't the fruit that made them. Underneath the torn half of his facial skin, Monet's mouth was continuously spilling blood. With half her body destroyed, her life was like a candle in the wind. The swirling snowflakes also began to gradually dissipate after this moment. You say. Sasuke turned around. His injuries weren't fully healed, but at least externally, he looked mostly recovered. The damaged wounds, filled with calamity flames, at least weren't bleeding anymore. That previous strike was originally aimed at the head. But the sudden surge in physical prowess due to karma made it difficult for him to control his strength and accuracy. Which is more important to me, the antidote, or you? As Sasuke said this, his gaze met Monet's vacant left eye. He understood that this woman's current experience should be similar to theirs earlier, forced to watch as her body was manipulated by another. Is it the antidote? The reply was Sasuke shaking his head. It seems it should be me. Yet Sasuke still denied it. So you still want to obtain the antidote? Speaking, Orochimaru suddenly sensed something and brushed his remaining hand past the corner of his eye. Tears. Monet's tears. She had watched as Orochimaru used her body to threaten her family, and watched as her own sister died before her eyes. At this moment, Monet's heart held nothing but killing intent toward Orochimaru. And Sasuke seemed to understand something from those vacant eyes. The flames on his arms madly coalesced, forming an ethereal wolf's head. Simultaneously, purple lightning began to flash and spiral around it. It is very important to me that you are gone. Sasuke finally understood that some people are born without empathy. In their eyes, the lives of their own kind can only be used as tools, as consumables. To achieve their own goals, they wouldn't mind how many people died. They don't even value their own lives. And trying to get a method to save others from such a person's mouth is nearly impossible. When a decision must be made, make it. Not killing Orochimaru would only allow him to harm more people. While Orochimaru was slightly stunned, Sasuke had already thrown his punch. The giant wolf wreathed in lightning carved a black trajectory through the air, swallowing Orochimaru's current body in the blink of an eye. Under the combined effects of high temperature and lightning, the flesh and blood were almost instantly turned to charcoal. Retracting his fist, Sasuke then cautiously made his way toward Yamato. He hadn't fully adapted to his drastically increased physical prowess yet, he had to concentrate fully on control. Using a ranged attack earlier was a necessity. If Naruto were here, perhaps he'd have a better solution. Walking to the pile of black ashes, Sasuke's eyes held no regret. Naruto had indeed brought many changes to him, but he still maintained his own way of thinking. Unlike Karen, Sasuke wouldn't wholly accept Naruto's ideas. Uzumaki Naruto, huh? Suddenly, a voice somewhat familiar to Sasuke rang out. What? Sasuke instantly turned his head, looking toward Yamato. Unbeknownst to him, a piece of residual flesh had attached itself to Yamato's body and now covered half her face. If he had come here, I probably would have run away long ago. Orochimaru manipulated Yamato's body to lightly move her head. He had, of course, watched the broadcast of the Marineford War and had a basic understanding of the power of Naruto. That was power not inferior to, no, possibly even surpassing that of an emperor. If he couldn't even handle Big Mom alone, how could he dare covet Naruto? Of course, he also coveted Naruto's body. As for Yamato and Sasuke, they were actually outside Orochimaru's plans. His greatest shortcoming was his weak physical body. Even with drug enhancement, he could only boost his regeneration, not truly and greatly increase his physical strength. So he took a different path, beginning to plan in the direction of seizing others' bodies. Perhaps this possession-style mindset was engraved in Orochimaru's instincts. Otherwise, it's hard to explain why two people with no shared memories would develop the same possession skill. Originally, in Orochimaru's expectations, capturing a sweet commander this time would have been considered achieving his goal. Who would have thought he'd hook two big fish instead? Of course, big fish also bring great risks. It could be said that Orochimaru had no strength to contend with either Sasuke or Yamato. The only thing he could do was catch them off guard, using the other type of gas to paralyze their bodies, just as he did with Diamante and Monet. However, one thing still felt off to Orochimaru. In his calculations, given Yamato's displayed physical prowess, the amount of gas needed to paralyze her body should have been more than this. At least after Sasuke ignited the gas, the residual amount shouldn't have been enough. But Orochimaru's skin gradually covered Yamato's entire body. He casually clenched his empty hand a few times, the terrifying force directly caused sonic booms in the air. This kind of power. It was now under my control. Yamato's strength exceeded even his estimates. Orochimaru even entertained the idea of challenging Big Mom now to reclaim his memories. But before that, let's test the limits of this body with you first. Chapter 453, Chapter 453 Conqueror's Haki. Conqueror's Haki. Orochimaru did not know Kaido's inherited Thunder Bagua. But that didn't matter. Yamato's physical strength had already reached a terrifying level. Like her father, compared to their offense, their endurance and defense were even more despair-inducing. Boom. Fist met fist, blue calamity flames and white freezing air interwove. Truly, powerful. Even Orochimaru couldn't help but feel excitement at the sheer might of Yamato's body. On the other side, Sasuke was equally shocked by Yamato's strength. Keep in mind, the current Sasuke not only had the boost from his hybrid transformation, but also multiple layers of karma buffs stacked on him. And even in this situation, the contest of strength between the two was still evenly matched. Splurt. Blood vessels in Sasuke's arm suddenly burst, and his bones made sounds of strain under the pressure. But in the next moment, more blue flames rushed to repair those injuries. However, Orochimaru's side was not without cost. Cracks also appeared on his arms from the excessive force. Even though Yamato's body hadn't bled this much during the previous massive explosion. Of course, with the mending from Orochimaru's white flesh, Yamato's injuries healed very quickly, even faster than Sasuke's. Although it wasn't his own body, Orochimaru still felt a pang of heartache. Yamato was probably the strongest body he could currently seize. If it got damaged, finding another comparable one would be difficult. So Orochimaru decisively pulled back, then opened his mouth wide. I remember it like this. Non-samurai ice fang. Through surveillance broadcasts, Orochimaru had also grasped some of Yamato's abilities, including the talent for creating large-scale freezing air. Extreme cold air gushed from Orochimaru's mouth, forming a spiraling white column that swept towards Sasuke. Everywhere the freezing air passed was covered in a thick layer of ice crystals, showing just how astonishingly cold it was. On the other side, Sasuke immediately began forming hand seals, then placed a single hand before his mouth, taking a deep breath. Fire release, Heavenly Calamity Dragon Fire Technique. It was essentially the Great Fire Dragon technique combined with the Calamity Flames he wielded. Some may have forgotten, while Calamity Flames he could cause destructive damage to most non-living matter, they had the unique effect of greatly enhancing fire. With Calamity Flames augmenting it, the originally moderately destructive Great Fire Dragon technique instantly transformed into a black fire dragon capable of annihilating everything. Unlike the ground which turned to ice crystals. Everywhere the black fire dragon passed seemed to be erased by an eraser, even skipping the burning process. The freezing air and the fire dragon met midair, but not with the expected clash effect. the black fire dragon passed through the white freezing air almost without hindrance, heading straight for Orochimaru. Correspondingly, the stray bits of freezing air not negated by the fire dragon struck Sasuke directly. But given Sasuke's current flaming state, that bit of freezing air couldn't even make frost form on his fur. Seeing his attack was ineffective, Orochimaru's serpent eyes instinctively widened. Fortunately, Yamato's body's reflexes were even faster than he imagined. By the time the thought dodge formed in his mind, the body was already in the process of evading. Is this the combat instinct of a true powerhouse? Orochimaru marveled again. However, when he dodged the dragon fire and shifted to the side, he found himself directly meeting Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan. It's bad. It seems I got a bit carried away after seizing this body and forgot about that guy's abilities. Sure enough, in the next moment, the patterns in Sasuke's Mangekyo began to rotate. And everything before Orochimaru's eyes started to distort. No. I can't keep looking. Orochimaru wanted to close his eyes, but his thoughts seemed utterly unable to operate this body. Just as Orochimaru thought he'd miscalculated at the last moment, suffocating Conqueror's haki pressure erupted from this body. Intense Conqueror's haki swept across the entire area, encompassing the entire high ground. Even Sasuke felt mental suppression under such a Conqueror's haki aura. This woman called Yamato actually possesses such powerful Conqueror's haki. Sasuke recalled what Naruto had told him about Conqueror's haki. It was absolute self, the act of overlaying one's own will upon the self of others. Therefore, those with doubts or weak wills were absolutely unqualified to use this haki. It was essentially intense mental impact. When fighting Obito and Madara, to resist the infinite Tsukuyomi from the moon, Naruto had once released a Conqueror's haki aura even more vast than this. Currently, Sasuke's Sharingan wasn't at the level of the infinite Tsukuyomi, so it wasn't strange for Yamato's Conqueror's haki to be able to resist it. Orochimaru felt the regained control of his body with some surprise, finding it somewhat unbelievable. This feeling, is this Conqueror's haki? Perhaps because he had never possessed a body with Conqueror's haki before, Orochimaru wasn't sure if this situation was normal. He hadn't taken any action or made any attempt, yet this powerful Conqueror's haki kept extending outward like it cost nothing. It was practically an automatic mental attack defense mechanism. With this, his final weakness was compensated for. Now, I lack nothing. Orochimaru didn't realize that people who said such things usually didn't end well. After resisting the Conqueror's haki for a few seconds, Sasuke's expression suddenly changed. From being on high alert to a look of speechlessness upon realizing something. He even directly dropped his combat stance, crossing his arms as he looked at Orochimaru opposite him. That's enough, you. Hearing this, Orochimaru was stunned, not understanding Sasuke's meaning at all. An exaggerated, mocking expression spread across his face as he grinned widely. Sasuke-kun, have you been frightened stupid by this Conqueror's haki? Shut up. I'm not talking to you, trash. However, in response to Orochimaru's taunt, Sasuke's expression instantly changed, looking at him with disdain. Hey. If you don't say something, I'm leaving. Saying this, Sasuke actually turned around, leaving himself open. Seeing this, Orochimaru decided not to care if Sasuke had lost his mind and wanted to seize this chance to take control of Sasuke's body as well. I'll gladly accept the experimental data, gladly accept Yamato's body, and gladly accept Sasuke's body too. But his movement froze mid-action. No matter how he tried to command it, the body remained immobile. You're so boring. Under Orochimaru's suddenly terrified gaze, his own hand, now covered in serpent scales, suddenly covered his own face, then ripped fiercely. Tear. The white flesh was torn off by force. The face revealed beneath showed no trace of vacuity. Why? Didn't I have you under control? How is this possible? Orochimaru, now with only half a face, let out an incredulous roar, but he could do nothing as he watched Yamato slowly strip the white flesh from her body. Yamato even carefully encased each piece of flesh in extreme cold ice crystals, instantly freezing the vitality of the flesh. I just figured it out. Physical abilities can be taken over, but the spirit is the manifestation of a person's will. Sasuke turned back and walked toward Yamato. Someone like Orochimaru absolutely cannot exhibit such a formidable will. The only possibility is. As he spoke, Sasuke's expression became exasperated again. You weren't controlled at all. Impossible. This can't be. Orochimaru still tried to command Yamato's body, but the orders sank like stones in water, receiving no response. Realizing something was wrong, Orochimaru tried to abandon Yamato's body, attempting to escape in his flesh clump form. But before Yamato and Sasuke, Orochimaru without a host wasn't much faster than a turtle. Under his unwilling gaze, freezing cold air rapidly spread, and finally, Yamato easily peeled him off like an ice cream shell. Chapter 454, Chapter 454 Yamato's Willfulness. Onigashima. Gulp gulp gulp. Kaido picked up his sake bowl and drank heartily, spilling wine on his chest and soaking the bandages without a care. This wasn't a banquet, but a small drinking party between the Beast Pirates' 3 all-stars and their captain. There were no other unrelated people in the room. King, Queen, and Jack each sat on one side. Ironically, the one with the lightest injuries here was Jack, who had been unable to go to Marineford because he was defeated by Karen earlier. With no outsiders, Jack, being the youngest, was responsible for pouring sake. After pouring a full bowl for Kaido and King, Jack was about to sit back down when he heard Queen speak up. "Hey. Jack, what about me?" "Oh." Among his own people, Jack wasn't as arrogant as he was with outsiders. Instead, he seemed somewhat simple and honest. He dutifully refilled Queen's half-empty bowl, then shook the nearly empty sake barrel. After a moment's thought, he simply raised the barrel and downed the remaining sake in one go. Ignoring the interaction between Queen and Jack, King, after sharing a bowl with Kaido, suddenly sighed deeply and brought up the topic from the big banquet a few days ago. "Kaido-sama, are you really at ease letting Yamato-sama deal with the remnants of the Don Quixote family?" Hearing this, Kaido's drinking motion paused abruptly. He set down his sake bowl and turned to look at King with a puzzled expression. "What? Are you worried that Yamato can't handle a few small fry?" It seemed the old father had great confidence in his son's abilities and wasn't worried at all. "No, of course not. Yamato-sama's strength, even I have no certainty of winning against it." Because it was a drinking party among 4, King wasn't wearing his full-face helmet. His white hair hung down naturally, covering a small part of his face. Yamato-sama's mind is simple. Plus, she doesn't have much experience at sea. I'm just worried she might be deceived by the Don Quixote family. King's worries weren't unfounded. If Yamato were truly as simple as he thought. Hearing his most loyal companion say this, Kaido was first taken aback, then burst into loud laughter. Worororo. Queen and Jack on the other side didn't understand why, but they laughed along too. Only King was left bewildered, feeling like he had missed a chapter and couldn't keep up with the conversation. After laughing his fill, Kaido wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, then slapped King on the unbandaged shoulder. "King, you still underestimate Yamato too much. Even without considering those little brats who went with her, Yamato alone is more than enough to handle that small country." Looking at Kaido's expression as he said this, King saw he wasn't joking, which raised a question in his mind. In recent years, Kaido had rarely been involved in management. Most of the Beast's pirates' affairs were handled by King and Queen through discussion. Among these, matters concerning Yamato were primarily King's responsibility. One could say he played both father and mother, acting as a loyal nanny. In King's view, while Yamato-sama was a bit rowdy, her heart remained as pure as a child's. Even with overwhelming strength, she could still be tricked by plots and schemes. Of course, this was also a kind of stepmother filter. Kaido didn't hesitate to shatter King's fixed impression of Yamato. "Yamato, she's my daughter." As he said this, Kaido was very serious. He didn't even use his usual son reference, but honestly acknowledged Yamato's identity. "She has the same blood flowing in her veins as I do. That's something that won't change no matter how much that blonde brat influences her. Come to think of it, I should thank him. If it weren't for that huge commotion he caused in Wano back then, Yamato might have been poisoned by that guy Kazuki Oden. Now, I have 100% confidence in Yamato. She will be the one to inherit my power, to inherit the title of King of the Beasts." King stared blankly at Kaido, as if not recognizing the men he had served for so many years. This was the first time he had heard such words from Kaido's mouth. At this moment, Kaido didn't show the previous disdain he had for Yamato. On the contrary, his eyes were filled with anticipation for something hoped for about to emerge. "Wait and see, King. Yamato is the one who will stir up the sea again. Her willfulness is no less than mine. She will be a new source of chaos, Worororo." Saying this, Kaido once again burst into unrestrained laughter. To this, King could only nod blankly, seeming to realize he hadn't fully understood the thoughts of this father and daughter pair. Kaido-sama's expectations for Yamato-sama were higher than he had imagined. Thinking of this, King suddenly realized something and looked up at Kaido. "But Kaido-sama, you previously said you'd only give her a month." Hearing this, Kaido simply waved his hand. "That brat is clever. She knows I could never do such a thing. After all, those people are the Beast's pirates' assets, tools that can produce endless weapons for us. As for the 1-month deadline, just wait and see. That brat will definitely come back ready to challenge me next time." As he said this, Kaido's face was full of satisfaction, without a trace of distress over his child's rebellion. Hehehehe, that damn blonde brat, your troubles are coming soon." Behind the sake bowl, his face showed a gleeful smile. "Hey, you, do you really understand the current situation? Sasuke looked at Yamato opposite him with utter speechlessness as she calmly dealt with the last bits of flesh on her body, then, without any hesitation, loosened her belt a bit and shook her loose clothing to ensure no residue remained. Huh. Yamato glanced up at him, then lowered her head again to tighten her belt. If you're worried about the antidote. Finally clean, Yamato stood up straight again, resting Takaru on the frozen chunks of Orochimaru. Those little ones running around the city saving people right now should be the Tontatta tribe you mentioned, right? As she spoke, Yamato pointed. Hearing this, Sasuke quickly walked to the edge of the high platform, straining his Sharingan to its limit. Combined with his observation haki, he indeed saw several small figures running rapidly through the city. Baby 5 was leading the way, while two small, insect-like Tontatta tribe's members flew around carrying a small person in a long dress. It seemed that was the Princess Man's-Harry they had mentioned. Following behind them was Viola, whom they had left behind earlier, now using the Gyro no Mi to guide them. And wherever Princess Man's-Harry passed, the snake people fell into a rigid, unmoving state, then began to shed their skin at a rapid pace, gradually returning to human form. I didn't lie to you, did I? Yamato walked to Sasuke's side, crossing her arms. You knew about this all along. Sasuke looked at Yamato, silently comparing the difference in their observation haki. Clearly, Yamato's observation haki range far surpassed his. At least when facing Orochimaru earlier, his observation haki couldn't cover such a distance. And judging by Yamato's words, she had likely been continuously monitoring the situation below. This person is stronger than I thought. This joke isn't funny at all. Sasuke said this, but inwardly he sighed in relief. Finally, they had saved this country before Orochimaru completely destroyed it. Ah, that. Actually, it wasn't a joke. However, Yamato's next sentence made Sasuke's closed eyes snap open again. It would have been better if your insight weren't so sharp. We could have fought in a muddled way, and it wouldn't have hurt our rapport. As she spoke, white flame clouds began to extend from around Yamato's body. Attacking you now. I feel like Naruto-sama would definitely scold me if he found out. Her words suggested she wanted to avoid trouble, but in Sasuke's perception, the fighting spirit rising from Yamato's body wasn't convincing at all. Naruto. You know Naruto too? Sasuke was taken aback, then realized. Right, Naruto had lived in this world for many years, it wasn't strange for him to know many people. However, Yamato had no intention of answering Sasuke's question. Let me see how qualified you are to follow that great man. As her words fell, a conqueror's haki impact far surpassing the previous one swept out wildly, and black lightning crackled on her kanabo. Yamato is now going all out. Chapter 455, Chapter 455 Hellfire Armor, the finally awakened conqueror's haki. Come on. Let's speak with our fists. Let me feel your soul. Roar of the Emperor, Thunder Bagua. Yamato roared as she leaped high into the air, conqueror's haki swirling around Takaru, smashing down towards Sasuke with earth-shattering momentum. Boom. The blow missed. Sasuke barely dodged. The rocky high ground that had withstood the gas explosion actually developed large spiderweb-like cracks under Yamato's strike, extending downward continuously. Seriously, don't dodge. Yamato, now fully transformed into the guardian deity of Wano form, rested her kanabo on her shoulder, speaking with some dissatisfaction. This wasn't exactly holding back against enemies and going all out against allies. After all, the earlier condition when attacking Orochimaru was to capture him alive if possible, and Orochimaru's frontal combat ability was indeed too weak. At least in Yamato's view, it was utterly unimpressive. Whether Orochimaru was using Diamante's body or Monet's, both were as fragile as paper before the kanabo. But Sasuke was different. In that earlier controlled state, Sasuke's fist had genuinely damaged Yamato's body. Even though that was probably because Orochimaru, the stand-in, had terrible skills, far from the original owner's level, preventing him from unleashing her true strength. But this was still a display of power. If it were one of the sweet commanders, like Smoothie or Cracker, even if Yamato stood still, they might not be able to break her defense. Besides, that black flame Sasuke spat out later had even made her sense mortal danger. If not for that, she wouldn't have taken over the account midway, forcibly controlling her body to dodge. And that ability, different from Conqueror's haki but also capable of producing mental impact. In short, there were too many things about Sasuke that interested Yamato. Are you serious? Even though he dodged this, Thunder Bagua, the aftershock of the Conqueror's haki-infused attack still scraped Sasuke's face painfully. Yes. So you better have the resolve to kill me. If you accidentally die under my Takaru, then I'll just have to take your corpse to Naruto-sama. A fierce smile spread across Yamato's face. Just as Kaido had said thousands of miles away, after Naruto's influence, Yamato's willfulness was no less than that of him. This was evident enough from Yamato's Conqueror's haki intensity, which could already match Kaido's. TCH. Sasuke clicked his tongue, but he still chose to draw Kusanagi sword. His meaning was clear. That's more like it. Come on. Sasuke boy, let's have a good, hearty fight. Facing Yamato's surging aura, Sasuke's figure abruptly vanished from his spot. The next moment, 5 identical figures instantly appeared around Yamato, all swinging their swords simultaneously. Body flicker technique, shadow clone technique, plus the temporary enhancement from karma, this combination created a certain kill situation. Looking at the approaching Kusanagi sword, feeling the chilling aura that raised goosebumps, Yamato's smile didn't fade, it grew. As expected, you can use this move too. She was referring to the shadow clone technique, an ability she had pestered Naruto about for so long but still couldn't learn. There's helping it. Since she's not from ninja world, she couldn't refine chakra, so she naturally couldn't perform ninjutsu. I can't tell any difference at all. Yamato's beast eyes quickly locked onto the 5 targets. In that case, I'll just beat them all up. Fierce tiger, roaring blast. Conqueror's haki swirled around the Kanabo as she struck out in all directions at blinding speed. Continuous afterimages of the staff sealed off all the space around her. Bang 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 bang. After a series of impacts, all 5 figures were smashed apart by Yamato's staff, turning into puffs of smoke. All fakes, not surprising. Just as Yamato's move ended, Sasuke's true body emerged from the shadows. At this moment, he wasn't using Kusanagi sword. Instead, he transformed into his hybrid form. Fighting someone of Yamato's level with his still unpolished swordsmanship would be looking down on her too much. He was getting serious. Hashoken, wolf penetration. If Chinjo were here, he would be astonished to find that the Hashoken technique Sasuke was using now already carried the essence of the Hashoken secret art, drill dragon nail. This was something Sasuke had deduced himself through contact with various Hashoken users these past days. To some extent, it was already very close to the original Hashoken secret art. Good move. Yamato simply released one hand from her Kanabo, clenching a fist to counter. Can't hit. Sasuke's eyes widened as he watched his fist unable to make contact with Yamato's no matter what. Thus, the Hashoken vibrations couldn't transmit directly onto her. This was a significant weakening for the Hashoken. The two remained locked for a few seconds, then a sonic boom erupted in the air. The next moment, Sasuke's figure was sent flying, crashing heavily into the castle ruins. Not enough yet, Sasuke boy. Yamato looked at the burning flames on her hand, then casually blew them out with a breath of freezing air. At this level, I can't acknowledge your qualifications, you know. Rumble. The ruins were pushed aside by a powerful force. Sasuke stood up again, the Amaterasu flames on his body so dense they practically formed armor. Qualifications, capacity, and other things like that. Why do you people always like to say such things? Clearly, Yamato's words reminded Sasuke of a man he never wanted to mention again. Black flame clouds stretched out into long trails in an instant. Both the blue calamity flames and the glow of chakra erupted from Sasuke's body. 8 gates, open. Yamato opposite him narrowed her eyes slightly, then gripped her staff with both hands, gathering strength throughout her body. Thunderbagwa. Almost the moment Yamato's voice fell, Sasuke's figure appeared before her as if teleporting. Hellfire armor, Indra. The Conqueror's haki-infused Kanabo once again used distorted space to block Sasuke's fist, yet he showed no intention of retreating. He wasn't just throwing a punch at Yamato, he was throwing a punch at that figure he could no longer take revenge upon, at his past self. Can you get even stronger? Yamato's gaze shifted from playful to serious. She exerted full force with both hands, the wounds previously mended by white flesh even split open again from the excessive strain. But Yamato paid it no mind now. From Sasuke's fist, she not only felt that formidable power gradually surpassing her own but also sensed something else. The soul of a true warrior. Ha 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 ha. Yes. This is the feeling. The fervor in your soul. I can feel it. Yamato laughed heartily, not caring at all that her Kanabo was being pushed back. In Sasuke's eyes now, the Mangekyo pattern of the Uchiha clan also began to quietly undergo some kind of transformation. Then, a raw yet incredibly resilient force erupted from Sasuke. In that moment, Yamato also felt Sasuke's self-will. Not through a shortcut like the Sharingan, but a genuine, rock-solid, powerful sense of self. Uchiha Sasuke's conqueror's haki had finally awakened. Crack. The Kanabo finally seemed unable to bear the strain, developing numerous cracks starting from the head. Chapter 456, Chapter 456 White Hot. When Yamato heard the shattering sound coming from her beloved Kanabo, Takaru, her boisterous laughter paused briefly. Huh. That's not right. Yamato shifted her gaze to the Kanabo in her hand again. The haki swirling around it was still as thick and despair-inducing as ever, showing no sign of being pierced. But beneath the hockey's protection, Takuru was indeed damaged. Was it that special fist technique? Yamato quickly recalled the Hasoken Sasuke had used earlier, then looked at the flames on his body. Or was it the work of these flames? It must be said, Yamato's combat intelligence was quite high. With just a glance, she grasped most of the principle behind Sasuke's attack. In reality, it was quite close to her speculation. As the two clashed, a figure wreathed in calamity flames gradually solidified from ethereal to real, appearing on Sasuke like a suit of genuine armor. The destructive vibrational property of the Hasoken and the matter-annihilating property of calamity flames seemed to be inherited by this armor. When the illusory gauntlet collided with the Kanabo, that peculiar energy completely ignored the hockey barrier, directly damaging the weapon beneath. However, it offered no defensive effect against Yamato's hockey-infused attacks at all, practically allowing them all to strike Sasuke's true body directly. One could say this armor, which Sasuke called Hellfire Armor, was less a defensive measure and more a unique type of weapon. A special weapon that completely abandoned defense and maximized penetration. Godly foot. Yamato suddenly kicked out, sending the somewhat unprepared Sasuke flying back. Freezing air left a faint mark on Sasuke's abdomen, but it was soon completely covered by flames. Tisk, it's badly damaged. This will be hard to fix. After creating distance, Yamato didn't take any further action. Instead, she stood still, looking sadly at her beloved Kanabo. During the clash earlier, it wasn't obvious. But now, after withdrawing her haki, the deep cracks on the Kanabo were truly shocking to Yamato. Gently placing Takuru aside, Yamato began to move her fists and feet. You really have a lot of tricks. This shouldn't be power from a devil fruit, right? As she spoke, Yamato pointed behind Sasuke. Now, the previously somewhat ethereal armor had completely solidified. Besides Sasuke's own arms, the armor extended an additional pair of arms from the shoulders and sides. And on either side of his head, two different faces appeared. Looking closely, the left face actually resembled Itachi's Susanoo. The right face more closely resembled the Susanoo of Sasuke's father, Fugaku. Adding the helmet slowly covering Sasuke's face, identical to the Susanoo he himself manifested. At this moment, Sasuke stood in place like a three-headed, six-armed deity. Come, the fight isn't over yet. He didn't answer Yamato. After being covered by the faceplate, Sasuke's voice seemed somewhat muffled. Behind the visor, the lotus-like patterns in his Mangekyo Sharingan had fully bloomed, looking like a pair of suns. No one, including Naruto, had ever tried to see what chemical reaction would occur between the Sharingan and Conqueror's haki. Well, perhaps his Kokugan and the Baku Baku no Mi's combination counted as another form of fusion. The original Susanoo was massive, practically a wall of size on the battlefield. A single strike could defeat hundreds, even thousands, of ninjas. It just happened to meet Hashirama, another player who could handcraft Gundams, otherwise, Madara alone might have unified the ninja world. But this situation wasn't applicable in the One Piece world. The strong here, without devil fruits, might not be as versatile as ninja. But without exception, they all possessed terrifying mobility and strength. If the opponent was a giant creature, the humanoid Susanoo still had the advantage compared to their beast form. But if the enemy was a relatively petite powerhouse like Yamato or Naruto, then summoning Susanoo would just make it a target. Size differences became insignificant after strength reached a certain level. On the contrary, an overly large body could easily disperse power and be broken through at a single point. What appeared on Sasuke now could be considered another form of Susanoo's transformation. Though before Sasuke, no Uchiha clan's member had ever thought to develop in this direction. Great. Then let's have a fun fight. A brilliant smile spread across Yamato's face as white freezing air gradually spread around her. The next moment, two figures collided like meteors. Boom. The tremendous sound once again drew the attention of those in Dressrosa who still retained their senses. There was one earlier, one should be Yamato-sama, but who on earth is the other guy? Page 1 looked toward the distant palace, then asked his sister. Who knows? But to be able to fight Yamato-sama for this long, seems this place isn't without formidable people either. Altai also sighed. Not far from them, Who's had no mood to care about this. Because he discovered that Guy X Drake was missing. I knew it. That guy definitely has problems. Just you wait, I'll report you to Yamato-sama later. Back to the battlefield. The fight between Sasuke and Yamato almost instantly turned white-hot. At first, the two used various techniques to fight, but later they simply started swinging fists on instinct. In just a few seconds, the two had exchanged hundreds of punches. Around them, the already dilapidated castle ruins were now even worse off. They could still dodge each other's fists with observation haki, but could the castle dodge? It couldn't. A casual punch or kick could completely shatter stone pillars that would take several people to embrace. Before the two now, these hard stones were practically no different from soft mud. Boom. Finally, Sasuke's movements faltered, and Yamato landed a punch. This conqueror's hockey-infused fist was heavy and powerful. Even though he blocked in time, the force still cracked his arm bone. But Sasuke wasn't just taking hits. Since he couldn't dodge, he seized the chance to counterattack. While Yamato threw one punch, Sasuke had already thrown three. The Susanoo transformed into hellfire armor was connected to his mind and spirit. The extra arms felt as if they were naturally linked to Sasuke's nerves, without any sense of unfamiliarity. Bang bang bang. For the first time, Yamato was forced back by Sasuke in a direct fistfight. Not bad. Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Yamato felt her internal organs crying out. Sasuke's fists almost completely ignored hockey defense, so she could only rely on pure physical toughness to defend. And even though she was born with divine strength and extraordinary talent, unless she accidentally picked up some cultivation manual, her internal organs were no different from ordinary creatures. Just more durable, at most. Sasuke remained silent, quietly using calamity flames to repair his bones. He didn't have much stamina left for talking. Even after eating a devil fruit, Sasuke's physical stamina and endurance still couldn't compare to a monster like Yamato. Not to mention she had also eaten a devil fruit, and the enhancement to her body was no less than Sasuke's. Now, a faint, stinging pain also started in Sasuke's head. A consequence of excessive mental consumption. Sasuke looked across, and found Yamato also appeared somewhat disheveled. But careful observation would reveal Yamato's breathing still maintained a certain rhythm. In such a fight, the other side could likely keep going indefinitely. I can't drag this on any longer. I need to decide the outcome in one move. Chapter 457, Chapter 457 The End. What a cheat-like ability. Yamato tilted her head, looking at Sasuke's arm where the torn wound was now sprouting pinkish tissue under the calamity flames. While it couldn't heal immediately, it at least ensured the bleeding stopped. As for Yamato herself. Phew. Freezing air instantly covered the wound on Yamato's hand, turning the blood into red ice crystals. Clenching her fist, Yamato nodded lightly. All right, let's continue. Though she lacked Sasuke's self-healing ability, Yamato's health pool was deep enough. This was a matter of accumulated foundation. After all, Sasuke was only 14 this year. He was even younger than Luffy. Even with various enhancements allowing him to fight numerous strong opponents, his body was still not fully developed. In contrast, Yamato was 27 this year. With Kaido's genes and training, Yamato's physical strength was even more exaggerated than her father's in his youth. Yet Yamato waited a few seconds and didn't see Sasuke take the initiative to attack. What's wrong? Reached your limit. Yamato's gaze swept over Sasuke, seemingly sensing his current state. She felt both regret and anticipation. Undoubtedly, Sasuke had now gained her recognition as that great man's attendant. One wonders if saying this directly would make Sasuke explode with rage a second time. While Sasuke himself was a martial arts fanatic who loved challenging others everywhere, he wasn't to the point of fighting an enemy one moment and immediately turning on an ally the next, like Yamato. In Sasuke's view, Yamato's personality had a touch of madness. Madwoman. It's better to let Naruto handle her himself. Be careful. Of course, saying this, Sasuke seemed to have also felt Yamato's will in the raw, fist-to-flesh pleasure of the fight just now. Just as Yamato said, communicate through battle, speak with fists. He no longer held much hostility toward Yamato, but that didn't mean he wouldn't keep fighting. At this point, in this battle, he wanted to win. Crackle crackle. Lightning, flames, and the blazing aura of boiling chakra all swirled together around his right arm. And the two large arms extending from the right side of Sasuke's body now reformed into armor, no, not just the right side. All the phenomena produced by haki and chakra were now slowly vanishing, transforming into the purest power gathering in Sasuke's right hand. An attack that completely abandoned defense, counterattacks, everything. Betting everything on this one strike, huh? Feeling the sense of crisis emanating from Sasuke, Yamato also wiped the smile from her face. This was respect for a true warrior. Then I guess I really have to face it with my full strength. As her words fell, Yamato picked up her kanabo again, and haki instantly covered it. Sorry, Takaru. I'll find the best blacksmith to reforge you. The surrounding air seemed to grow quiet at this moment. The sky had been completely covered by dark clouds at some point. Rumble. Rumble. Silver snakes writhed within the clouds, the majestic might of sky felt suffocating. Boom. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck down, heading straight for Sasuke. The next moment, that lightning from nature merged with the lightning chakra Sasuke himself created, forging his arm into an unbreakable blade. Lightning fire sword. A certain kill strike, not easily replicated, borrowing natural lightning. Sasuke turned into a black shadow charging toward Yamato. Yamato, also feeling this indomitable momentum, raised her kanabo high. Divine strike. Terrifying conqueror's haki madly swirled around the Kanabo, producing black lightning on par with the heavenly thunder above. Kirin. Thunderbugwa. Their roars were deafening, but soon covered by an even greater roar. The entire Dressrosa, no, even Greenbit Island across the sea from Dressrosa could hear the sound. Wah! What happened? Is it an earthquake? Don't panic. Don't panic. Underground in Greenbit, the Tontata kingdom was in chaos. Mancheri's father, Chief Gancho of the Tontata tribe, was trying to calm the other tribesmen. But obviously, this white-bearded little person's voice couldn't cover the already chaotic tribe. Moreover, he himself felt uneasy. The tremendous noise clearly came from Dressrosa Island. His daughter and those elite tribesmen were imprisoned by the Don Quixote family. Their rescue plan wasn't ready yet. Gancho didn't know if this was an opportunity or a disaster. Should he lead the remaining Tontata warriors in an all-out assault to rescue the others amid the chaos? And the Tontata warriors Gancho had sent to gather information in Dressrosa had also fallen into a deep sleep due to the gas, and even the roaring couldn't wake them, so they couldn't relay what was happening in Dressrosa to Gancho. Everyone. Gancho suddenly roared loudly, instantly silencing the little people below. Cough, cough, cough. All remaining warriors, come with me to Dressrosa. After coughing for a while, he said something that made his tribesmen's eyes widen. Before his ministers could dissuade him, Gancho waved his hand. If we don't return, you continue hiding and recuperate. After saying this, he led the way toward the surface. The others looked at each other. Finally, the warriors, infected by Gancho's courage, regained order and followed. Lightning roared. Haki clashed. The previously oppressive dark clouds, after the tremendous roar, were blown open into a huge hole. Sunlight poured straight down, illuminating the collapsed ruins at the center of the Dressrosa kingdom. Whoever decided this rule, every time strong opponents clash, the clouds in the sky always have to change shape. At this moment, Dressrosa's towering rocky platform, modeled after the Red Line, had completely collapsed under Sasuke and Yamato's strike. Fortunately, there weren't many buildings nearby, and most snake people had moved toward areas with signs of life outside, so this collapse didn't cause greater destruction. Of course, the Don Quixote family's secret underground shipyard, built right beneath the castle, was buried along with the collapsing ground. Those Don Quixote family soldiers turned into snake people, and some pirates and marines who hadn't escaped in time after being changed back from toys, could only pray for luck. Feeling the blinding sunlight, Yamato tried to raise a hand to block it, but a sharp pain from her body stopped her. So reckless, but it was a good fight. Gritting her teeth, she sat up, looking at the large hole in her shoulder pierced by Sasuke's, Kirin, now plugged with ice crystals. You even held back, huh? Yamato chuckled, then looked at Sasuke, who had collapsed from exhaustion. Sasuke had now returned to human form, and the calamity flames on his body were slowly dissipating. But his injuries were far fewer than Yamato's. The healing effect of calamity flames was still too powerful. If his stamina could keep up, the one lying unconscious today would likely have been Yamato. Let's call it a draw. Saying this, Yamato let out a light laugh. She felt the sea is truly fascinating. Chapter 458, Chapter 458 After the battle. And a woman 100 times more difficult than Naruto. Maybe it was because he had just awakened Conqueror's haki and overdrawn too much mental energy. When Sasuke woke up, it was already several days later. Oh. You're awake. Even before opening his eyes, Sasuke heard Yamato's energetic voice. Why are you eating next to me? Sasuke was utterly helpless. Strictly speaking, he should have been awakened by the aroma of the still steaming roasted meat in Yamato's hands. Do you want some? Yamato acted as if she didn't understand the question at all, instead shoving another fragrant roasted rib right under Sasuke's nose. That's not what I mean. I just wanted. Gurgle. Hee hee. I knew it, smile spread across Yamato's face. In the end, in this ward that still smelled faintly of disinfectant, Sasuke, wrapped in bandages, somewhat painfully picked up the roasted rib and began to eat. Seeing this, Yamato finally nodded with satisfaction. Even though they had been locked in a life and death battle before he lost consciousness, when Sasuke woke up, he held no hostility toward Yamato. It wasn't that he had amnesia. In reality, when they fought to the last moment, their wills had intermingled within the conqueror's haki each emitted. No need for excessive words. What drove Sasuke to unleash that final attack wasn't killing intent, but the desire to prove himself. To prove he was no less than anyone, to prove he was no longer the powerless child from the past, to prove he had completely moved on from his past. Watching Sasuke struggling to gnaw on the rib, Yamato then flashed a provocative smile, suddenly taking an even larger piece of roasted meat and placing it before Sasuke. Then, under Sasuke's speechless gaze, Yamato very childishly took a bite that consumed more than half of it. Hee hee hee. Yamato, mouth still full of meat, kept up her provocation, chewing a few times before swallowing it all. Her expression seemed to say something like, "See? You're not as good as me, are you?" Sasuke rolled his eyes and turned his head away. Even now, he didn't understand why everyone in this world could eat so much. Naruto, Yamato, and the other pirates he'd met before all seemed to be bottomless pits. And compared to himself, whose hands ached with pain just holding food, Yamato, with a hole in her shoulder, seemed completely fine. One could only say Sasuke hadn't assimilated enough. If he lived here for over a decade, he might have learned this trick. During the previous continuous battles, Sasuke's greatest injury didn't come from Yamato, but from the internal damage caused by directly igniting the gas inside him. If not for calamity flames clinging to life, anyone else would have died on the spot. Adding to that, constantly maintaining calamity flames, the 8 gates, and body revival technique states, the fact Sasuke could still raise his arms now was only thanks to the mythical Zoan Devil Fruit. Injuries like these would have even kept those two with thick eyebrows in Konoha's hospital bed for half a year, maybe even in a wheelchair. In contrast, Yamato, without a health regeneration cheat like calamity flames, hadn't even lost consciousness. After the Tobarapo and other Beast Pirates members arrived, despite her injuries, she not only arranged for maintaining order but also ate a huge meal before going to sleep to rest. After waking up, Yamato's shoulder injury was already movable. The monstrous physique is well deserved. As he ate, maybe because he was too weak, Sasuke actually choked on the meat. Fortunately, Yamato noticed in time, preventing this mythical Zoan user from being solo killed by a single roasted rib. Gulp. Taking the cup and drinking, Sasuke's expression immediately changed. He forcibly adjusted his breathing to avoid choking. It was alcohol. Of course it was alcohol. What was he suspecting? What else would a reckless person like Yamato hand him besides alcohol? He should be thankful she hadn't replaced the 4 drip with alcohol. After wiping his hands and mouth clean, Sasuke looked helplessly at Yamato, who was still devouring food in front of him. This woman was 100 times more difficult than Naruto. How's the situation outside? I mean after I lost consciousness. Hearing Sasuke's question, Yamato didn't even look up, mumbling as she narrated what happened after he passed out. After their fight that day, the collapse of the King's Plateau attracted all the still conscious people in the country. Among them, besides Baby 5 and the still petrified Senor Pink, all other Don Quixote family's members had disappeared. According to the boss of the Happo Navy, Chinjo, they were probably all dead. Treble, the strategist, was now a commander without troops and had been taken into custody by the Beast's pirates. Originally, he shouldn't have ended up like this. But because Sugar died in the explosion, the memory-blocking effect of the Hobi Hobi no Mi was lifted. This opened a can of worms. Ignoring the already collapsed world government on the surface, just the pirates who had been turned into toys and their affiliated forces were enough to repeatedly destroy Dressrosa. Leaving aside the exclamations of shock from various forces thousands of miles away, just the fact that among those people were Beast's Pirates members was enough to seal Treble's fate. Although the Beast's Pirates had originally intended to annex the Don Quixote family anyway. Of course, because memories were restored, the truth about King Riku being controlled by Don Quixote Doflamingo, the Don Quixote family using the Hobi Hobi no Mi to eliminate all destabilizing factors in Dressrosa, etc., all came to light. The reputation of the Riku family completely reversed overnight. Even Rebecca, who had just changed back from a snake person and was still a bit dazed, received sincere apologies from the citizens. King Riku, wandering on some unknown street, first turned into a snake person, then cured by Princess Man's-Harry, and was finally reunited with his family after many years. Viola cried her eyes out. Because Chinjo hadn't lost his sanity, the Happo Navy didn't suffer much damage, at least compared to the country of Dressrosa, they were much better off. After this incident, Dressrosa could almost be said to have been destroyed once. From buildings, citizens, to reputation, economy, and of course, national power. It would probably take a considerable amount of time to rebuild. Because of this, there was some debate within the Beast's Pirates about whether to take over this country. Drake, popping up from who knows where, opposed it. Who's Who saw it as a chance for redemption and firmly supported it. The Page One siblings didn't offer opinions. Now it was up to Yamato, the young master, to decide. By the way, after recovering, the Tontada tribe's members successfully reunited with Gancho and others and decided to withdraw from Dressrosa. They also planned to set sail to find other tribesmen taken to Punk Hazard. It was only after they made this decision that the Beast's Pirates belatedly found the artificial devil fruit factory. Of course, by then, the place was already empty, but the tools, raw materials, and some overseers who knew the workflow were still there. As long as they could find another group of people capable of freely cultivating plants to handle the growing process, this production line could be restarted. Regarding all this, Yamato showed no intention of expressing an opinion. She just had her subordinates send the information back to Onigashima via messenger pigeons. Over such long distances, Den mushy signals couldn't reach. This matter needed Kaido's decision. The reason sounded lofty. Tobirappo couldn't really say anything else. Who's Who wanted to persuade Yamato to act first and seek approval later, but Yamato simply ignored him, spending her days either wandering around or coming to Sasuke's ward to eat voraciously. This left the eager to assist Who's Who quite helpless. But he didn't know something even more troublesome was coming.